We do.
All right. It is 5:30 on the nose. Welcome to our viewing audience, to the Board of Education for San Bernardino City Unified School District. And we will call this meeting to order, and we will start with the pledge. And I would like to ask if Dr. Sandra Rodriguez would lead us in the pledge.
Absolutely. So if we could all stand and put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're now moving to the next item, 1.3, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. If there, Dr. Volkemer or Mr. Irving, Superintendent Irving, no one has said that they had anything to change. So if not, we're going to go ahead and take the vote. Ms. Ceballos, who I believe is going to be absent, was going to try to come in, so I don't see or hear her. Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt.
Aye.
Mrs. Rosales Medina.
I'm going to say I just want to ensure that we do add the agenda. What was missing is the Pride Month for LGBTQ. So I would like to have that added, but I do approve it. I just wish we would have had it beforehand. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tillman.
Aye.
Dr. Flores.
Aye.
And Dr. Dowdy Rogers. Aye, motion carried. Thank you so much. We are now at 1.4, inspirational message, and that is coming from Dr. Flores tonight. Dr. Flores.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to share 3 aspects today. In Lakesh, from Mayan philosophy, gratitude and blessings. So in Lakesh, I'm going to do it bilingually. Tú eres mi otro yo. You are my other me. Si te hago daño a ti, if I do harm to you, me hago daño a mí mismo. I do harm to myself. Si te amo y respeto, if I love and respect you, me amo y respeto yo. I love and respect myself. The Mayans believe that we do not exist as separate entities. We exist from our belonging and relationship with the community and with everything that surrounds us. And according to them, from childhood, one learns to get along with everything around him or her because it is through his or her relationship with those others that he builds his or her person, his or her respect, prestige, family, community, and with people and his place in the world or her place in the world. And it's very, very profound in terms of us coming back together, in terms of respecting each other. But I love that I am you, you are me, we are one. And that whatever I do to myself, I do to you. And so love and respect to everyone. Gratitude. What is gratitude? Every language in the world has a way to say thank you. This is because gratitude is an inherent quality that resides within each human being and is triggered and expressed spontaneously in a variety of different contexts. Gratitude is a feeling that spontaneously emerges from within. Gratitude is a habit of the heart. The daily practice of gratitude keeps hearts open regardless of what comes our way. Alex de Tocqueville. Gratitude as a virtue. Virtues are qualities that support the inherent goodness that resides within each human being. The cultivation of gratitude develops character. It engenders other virtues such as generosity, humility, compassion, wisdom, joy, integrity, and trust. And with that, gratitude is a blessing. Blessings are those experiences we hold as the good in our lives. To bless is to sanctify, to recognize, the presence of grace. Blessings are gifts that open doors to healing, connections, meaning, and transformation. So in closing, we ask for blessings as we welcome a new leader, Mr. Irvin, into our district. And we give our gratitude to Dr. Volkemer for his steadfast leadership, integrity through one of the worst crises that we have had. And the blessings are in order as well for all of us as we move forward together. Together, we are one. Together, we are blessed. Together, we give gratitude to where we've come. And that includes the board, the cabinet, all our administrators, directors, our parents, our children, and especially our teachers and staff who are there, the backbone, for our children and ourselves. And I feel blessed that we are together. I know that our board is one, we're united, and we have the best interests of our whole community and our district. And so I leave us that with those blessings for all of us as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. We will now move to 2.1, resolution in recognition of Juneteenth, National Freedom Day, a day of an observance. And Mr. Tillman, can you read that for us tonight?
My pleasure, Madam President. Whereas Juneteenth, also known as Juneteenth Independence Day, Emancipation Day, Emancipation Celebration, and Freedom Day, is the oldest African-American holiday observance in the United States. And whereas in August 1619, the first documented Africans arrived in the English colony of Virginia and sold as involuntary laborers or indentured servants. And whereas on September 22nd, 1862, President Lincoln issued his celebrated Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas prior to the end of the Civil War, on January 31st, 1865, Congress passed the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which abolished slavery throughout the United States and its territories. And whereas Juneteenth, or June 19th, 1865, is considered the date when the last slaves in America were freed, almost 2.5 years after President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas the governor shall proclaim the third Saturday in June of each year to be known as Juneteenth National Freedom Day, a day of observance, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the San Bernardino City Unified School District hereby recognizes June 19th as Juneteenth and the third Saturday in each June of each year to be known as Juneteenth National Freedom Day, a day of observance, and urges people to join in celebrating Juneteenth as a day to honor and reflect on the significant role that African Americans have played in the history of the United States and how they have enriched society through their steadfast commitment to promoting freedom, brotherhood, unity, and equality. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved in second. If there's no further discussion, we'll take the vote. Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
And Dr. Dowdy Rogers, aye. Motion carried. Thank you. We're now moving to 3.1 for closed session. Mrs. Cunningham, are there any comments?
No, there are no public comments for that.
No public comments. All right. At this time, board, we will log out, and to our viewing audience, we will return shortly. right. Let's see who is back. I see Ms. Rosales Medina. I see. Do I? Dr. Wyatt, yes. Dr. Wyatt, do you see Dr. Hill or Dr. Flores?
No, I just let them all in. They're all coming in right now.
Okay. Okay, there's Dr. Flores. I see her. And I see Dr. Hill. Okay, I think everyone is back. All right, let me bring back up my agenda. All right, we are now coming back from closed session, and we will now move to 4.1, appointment for elementary school principals, human resources. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the appointment of the following employees. Christopher Tickell, elementary school principal, Henry Elementary School, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined. Christina Tesmer, elementary school principal, Bradley Elementary School, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined. Ernesto Calles, elementary school principal, Cypress Elementary School, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined.
Madam President, just point of order. In the past, we always taken them individually.
Let me just check, Ms. Cunningham, I know we placed them all together this time.
Yes, madam. That's how they were sent to me, and so I just left them that way.
All right. Well, I want to be here. Let's just do them one at a time.
No, I don't have a problem doing it, but
if we're able to do it.
Right, because there are times when,
right.
You know what I mean?
It should be done individually.
Right. If we make a common practice, it's better that way.
Right.
Well,
okay.
It should be done individually. I just want to be clear to the board. They have to be voted on individually.
Let's go ahead. Okay, let's go ahead and do them individually. And I'll read the be it resolved on each one. Okay, so be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the appointment of the following employee. Christopher Tickell, elementary school principal, Henry Elementary School, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. If there's no discussion, Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt.
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina.
Aye.
Mr. Tillman.
Aye.
Dr. Flores.
Aye.
Dr. Dowdy Rogers. Aye. Motion carried. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the appointment of the following employee. Christina Tesmer, elementary school principal, Bradley Elementary School, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. I think I heard twice. And if there is no further discussion, then Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt. Dr. Wyatt.
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina.
Aye.
Mr. Tillman.
Aye.
Dr. Flores.
Aye.
And Dr. Dowdy Rogers, aye. Motion carried. All right. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the appointment of the following employee. Ernesto Calles, elementary school principal, Cypress Elementary School, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined.
So moved.
Second. Oh, whoever else wants to be second.
It's been moved, and Ms. Cunningham, please capture that second. And if there's no further discussion, then we will go ahead and take the vote. Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt.
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina.
Aye.
Mr. Tillman.
Aye.
Dr. Flores.
Aye.
And Dr. Dowdy Rogers, aye. Motion carried. Thank you. All right, we are now moving to public hearing. 5.1, balance in excess of minimum reserve requirement fiscal year 2021. I am opening up the public hearing. So I'm banging over here for sure. And are there any comments?
No, there were no comments.
All right, if there are no comments, yes.
I know I can do it here because it's talking about the ending balances. And I just want to make sure for the programs that we have going this summer not just the ones with the district, but ensure that also the programs for CAPS, that they have the water and the hand sanitizers. I heard from a parent that somebody at the site asked the kids to bring some stuff in. Now, I just want to make sure that we have told the sites that they can get supplies, that we have plenty of them. And I do know that it could be a request from the CAPS, because a young child doesn't know the difference between the CAPS teacher and the regular teacher, right? So even with the CAPS, I really think we need to work with them to make sure there's some basic things that we can provide. That's being water and the hand sanitizer. If Mr. Irvin, if you concur, I think that's important, and we can use some of the money to do that.
So yeah, we concur. We've already talked with the team, and we'll make sure that that issue is addressed.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. All right, I'll close this public hearing, and there is no vote on this one. So I'll move to 5.2, local control and accountability plan. I am opening up the public hearing. Are there any public comments or any comments?
No, there are none.
All right, nothing else further from the board. I will close this public hearing. Again, there is no vote. And I will move to 5.3, fiscal year 2021-22 preliminary budget, business services. I will open the public hearing. Are there any comments?
There are no comments.
All right, hearing nothing from the board, I will close the public hearing, and there is also no vote on that. We are now at public comments, and I will read. This is the only time the public will have an opportunity to address the board on items not on the agenda and within their subject matter jurisdiction, such as district policies, procedures, programs, services, or fiscal matters. Pursuant to the provision of the Governor's Executive Order N29-20 dated March 17, 2020, certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act are suspended. If you would like to make a live comment at district board meetings, a registration form is required. Forms can be found on the district's website and Facebook. This registration form is available for 24 hours prior to all scheduled Board of Education meetings and will close at 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person, and all comments submitted on one subject will be provided no more than 30 minutes total. A timer will be visible on the screen during your comments. We ask that you monitor your time. Participants are reminded that any inappropriate language or images will forfeit their registration, and they will immediately be removed from the meeting. Speakers are cautioned that under California law, no person is immune from liability for making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person simply because these comments are made at a public meeting. Ms. Cunningham, are there any public comments tonight?
Yes, Madam President, there are. We'll start with Janice Kuhn. Ms. Kuhn, if you're available, will you please unmute?
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, good. You can hear me.
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Dowdy Rogers, Superintendent Irvin. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I am Janice Kuhn. I work for Omnitrans. I have a soft spot for San Bernardino. My parents were teachers there for 35 years. That's not why I'm here tonight. I wanted to tell you about a program that we're launching in August. It's called Free Fares for Schools. And we are allowing all K through 12 students within our service area free fares. They can go to school, they can go to the mall, they can go anywhere for free, August 2021 through February 2022. And this program is going to be great because it will coincide with the openings of school again, hopefully in August. And as you know, there's a measurable link between access to transportation, school attendance, and graduation. And Omnitrans wants to provide equity to the region and to help build the next generation of success of riding the bus in our community. Upon completion of this pilot program, we will seek program and stakeholder funding similar to our Go Smart program, which is a program that all of the colleges locally participate in where they're allowed free fares. Our next step and what I'm asking for today is help in pointing me in the direction of someone to coordinate this with. The program is free, but we will be putting stickers on students' IDs. That's what will allow them to ride the bus for free. And I look forward to answering any questions that you have, and I can meet with you separately to go over this as well.
Thank you so much. I'm not seeing any, but I'm sure our superintendent is capturing that information and will designate it to the appropriate team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Valerie Leonardi. Ms. Leonardi, if you can please unmute.
Before I begin, I have a question. Dr. Leonardi, I accidentally sent the email for his cell phone and not to an email address. So he's like, I haven't received a link. And I'm like, oh, sorry. Is there something that can be done or no? Can I send him the link from this one, from the one that I have, or no?
Are you indicating who filled out, who completed the registration form?
I filled out the registration form for him.
That will be the one assigned to.
It's not a email. It's just unfortunately, I used his text message. I didn't realize.
Right, but he's got to be the one. So I would say that being that this is your time for public comment, I would just go ahead and do your public comment.
Okay. Then what I'm going to read is the letter from Dr. Leonardi, and I am sorry that I filled out the form incorrectly. To the officials of the school board, my name is Anthony Leonardi, PhD, and I am a T-cell immunologist educated at Johns Hopkins 0912 and did my PhD work at the National Cancer Institute on T-cell function, dysfunction, and immunity. I discovered the dominant link for T-cell communication and death. In May 2020, I wrote to you that the virus is easily spread by air. It is now recognized as airborne. That's cited 1, 2, and 3. Loud and privileged voices in San Francisco and the Atlantic have been celebrating as the pandemic is over. As the pandemic is over, that's cited as 4. As their communities have been vaccinated up to 60%. Meanwhile, our community is only currently at 33%. That's cited as 5. I'm going to be very clear. If we do not have community levels of 65% vaccination before opening schools, children will catch this airborne virus and spread it. Given our inability to keep windows open, the airborne virus will accumulate and kids will catch the virus. They will suffer the effects of the virus. 1% of them will be hospitalized per the CDC, cited as 6, and they will go on to infect their families. The variants in circulation in California right now infect children even more, citation 7. The UK opened schools early in Bolton and saw kids rise in infections 200%, and the generation of their parents followed soon after, citation 8. I'm imploring you once again to build up immunity with vaccinations before opening. If the adults are not responsible enough to be vaccinated to bring the community level up to 65%, children should be vaccinated before filling windowless classrooms with people. I am staunchly opposed to children catching this virus for their immunity. Why? The virus is able to track into important neurological systems responsible for the taste and smell in children, cited 9. We do not know what long-term effects will be, and there have been reports of Parkinson's-like manifestations, citation 10. It is a waste for people to catch this virus when vaccines are available. Do not bring unvaccinated children into a classroom where the total vaccinated population of the community is below 65% and recklessly expose children to such risks. Furthermore, the virus is causing autoimmunity to important neurological proteins, citation 11. It is nonsense for a child to go to a school in a community where the virus is still circulating and have any neurological impairment. Also, minorities are most affected by the virus, citation 12 and 13. And vaccination rates are lowest in minority communities, citation 14, even though they need the vaccine most of all because of greater susceptibility. Finally, we have evidence of the Delta variant, formerly known as B.1617, infecting people hours after an infected person was in the room and even outdoors, citation 15. Therefore, people cannot share air without risking transmission of this variant. I recommend school systems spread information about how important it is to vaccinate in order to reopen schools safely, If the adults in the community will not vaccinate to 65%, then children should be vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Do not bring unvaccinated children into a classroom where a total vaccinated population of the community is below 65% and recklessly expose children to such risks. Sincerely, Anthony Leonardi, PhD, 6/2/2021.
Thank you.
Copies were sent with the citations listed.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham, are there any?
If Dr. Leonardi is not available, that is all the public comments.
That is it. All right. Then we will now move to item 7.0, reports and comments by union organizations. 7.1, beginning with the San Bernardino Teachers Association. Is there a representative?
Good evening, President Rogers, members of the board and cabinet. I am Ashley Vidas-Alcala, president of the San Bernardino Teachers Association. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of the 3,000 members of SBTA. First, we would like to welcome Superintendent Irvin to his first official regular board meeting and to our district. SBTA looks forward to our continued partnership with the district leadership to help move our students forward through this rapidly changing educational landscape. I would also like to take a moment to say thank you to all of our members for their perseverance and dedication to our students and families these past 15 months. You made it through this unprecedented school year, and we have much to be grateful and thankful for. And just yesterday, we began our in-person summer programs at many of our sites. I know that our educators were anxious and excited to see our students in person, as our students were to see their teachers. I heard from several different sites that things have been going smoothly so far. However, it still remains that we have to continue to be vigilant, as this pandemic is not over. And we cannot forget that a large portion of our children are still not protected from the virus. It is encouraging that our students ages 12 and up can now access the COVID vaccine. However, we still don't know when our youngest learners will have that access as well. And we must continue to take every safety precaution seriously to continue to ensure these environments that educators and students are currently in are safe and continue to be that way. And as I have said before, we need to continue to proceed with caution. And if we need to stop and change course to ensure safety, then we need to have the courage to do that, as this board has done since the beginning of the pandemic. We also cannot afford to cut corners just to return to normal if we do not implement these COVID safety procedures based on whatever our current scientific knowledge and guidance is, because then we will be in danger of putting our children and their families at risk. And so I hope the board continues to monitor the situation as we have kind of stepped our toe into this first foray of in-person learning over summer school, and make sure that we do what we need to do in order to keep everybody as safe as possible. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. All right, 7.2, California School Employees Association. Is there a representative? All right, 7.3, Communication Workers of America. Is there a representative? Or Ms. Cunningham, did you have a statement?
Yeah, Madam President, Teresa sent me something. She asked if I would read it since she couldn't be here. Good evening, honorable board members and staff. This is Teresa Hunter, CWA Local 9588 Area Vice President. As part of the district staff team that visited some of our schools yesterday, we are pleased to note that SBCUSD schools are well on their way to being welcoming, clean, and safe learning spaces for our students who started summer school yesterday. Thank you to all classified and certificated staff who worked so hard to accomplish this while incorporating all safety protocols. And thank you to all guest teachers who have stepped in to help provide a great summer school experience for our students. Have a great evening. That's it.
All right, thank you. And lastly, 7.4, San Bernardino School Police Officers Association. Is there a representative on tonight? If not, we will move to 8.0, our presentations. 8.1, we will be hearing on our Citizens Oversight Committee 2020-2021 annual written report, and we will now welcome Ms. Gloria Macias-Harris.
Good evening. You already mentioned my name, I'm going to do it again. It's Gloria Macias-Harrison, and I'm the chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure T since 2004, and also for Measure M. And we do not determine how bond measures are financed and how they're spent, but our job is to make sure that whatever was promised the citizens who voted for the bond measures, that those projects are completed and run in compliance with the promise made through the bonds. I have to say that the San Bernardino Unified School District is in compliance in finances and its projects. You should have before you a report that was put together that lists all of the projects that have been accomplished through the bond measures. And when you look at the enormity of the projects, I have to say a special thanks to the whole Department of Facilities and Planning and Development. In spite of this last year being a difficult time, and then following safety protocols, and even though it would have made it seems logical that it would make everything go smoother because there weren't any staff or students at the facilities. But at the same time, trying to make sure that all the workers are safe and doing the projects is a difficult thing. So I have to give Tom Pace and the whole department kudos for getting it done. There's some wonderful, if you look at the timeline, you will see all the new campuses that have been accomplished, the modernizations that have been accomplished, deferred maintenance, upgrades, especially on the HVAC, since you were just talking about summer session. And one of our concerns was to make sure that the HVAC was working for summer session. And remodeling, such as the libraries and the kitchens, I think all of that is moving along very well. And like I said, for us as a committee, has been challenging because we have not been able to tour the facilities, but virtual tours were made available to us, so I thank them for that. And the only thing I can say as far as our committee is concerned, we're looking for 3 members. We will have 3 vacancies coming up. And so we will be looking for people that fit the categories that are specified for the Citizens Oversight Committee. And I give kudos to everybody, senior staff, and especially the Department of Facilities and Planning and Development. And that's my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. We definitely welcome good news. So we appreciate you and the committee for reviewing us. Mr. Tillman?
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your work.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. And I'm sure you'll be leaving us now.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Have a good meeting. Have a good
You
meeting.
too. Take care. 8.2, Building Fund Financial and Performance Audit Report for fiscal year 2019 and 2020 business services.
I'd like, first of all, I wanted to thank Ms. Harrison for volunteering, because that's all volunteer hours. So that's wonderful that for her commitment to the district. So I'm going to turn it over to our the partner of our audit firm, Shiloh Gorospe, and she is going to talk to you just for a minute about the financial report for our bonds.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you, Janie. I'm Shiloh Gorospe, and I'm going to go ahead and present for you the audit results for the June 30, 2020 Measure T and Measure N. I will go ahead and share my screen so that I can show you the report as I'm covering a couple of the key pages. So please let me know if you are able to see that report.
We can see it.
Great. Yes. There we go. Make it a little bit bigger. So as I mentioned, this is the June 30, 2020 financial and performance audit for both measures T and measure N. As you're aware, under Proposition 39, both a financial and performance audit are required for each of those measures. And the first portion of our report, as I scroll through, is the financial audit. The goal of the financial audit is to provide an opinion on the financial statements as of June 30, 2020, regarding whether the financial statements are materially stated based on our audit. And so our audit for both measure T and measure N is an unmodified opinion. So that means that the financial statements as presented are materially stated. It's a clean report on the financial statements for measures T and N. And just because this is a smaller report, but I'll just, as I'm scrolling through the pages, a recap of where you were at when measure T and measure N ended the year June 30, 2020. As you can see, measure T really winding down for that year with still some funds left in measure N. Measure T at about 1.9 million and measure N at about 33.2 million. That's just informational for you. Along with the financial audit, it is a goal of ours to provide you with, as you see, I'm just scrolling all the way to the back, a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance specific to measures T and N's financial reporting in accordance with our governmental auditing standards. And so what our goal of that report is, during the course of our audit, we have to obtain an understanding of internal controls and processes. And if any deficiencies in internal controls come to our attention during that process that we think rise to the level of significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, we are required by our government audit standards to report those to you. And so this report does not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to report tonight on the internal controls. So that's a clean report. And then the bigger part of the report really is as it relates to the performance audit. So the goal of the performance audit is really a compliance audit, is how most folks look at it. Our goal is to look at expenditures and determine whether or not the district spent the measure T and measure N funds in accordance with the ballot language. And we do that through sampling, and we do that through risk assessment as well. We try to make sure that during our sampling, we're covering a variety of projects among all the different projects. We like to look at things that meet materiality thresholds, so large dollar items, but then we also like to sample things that really fall below maybe what we would consider to be a larger item. So that way our sampling covers a wide array of dollar amount as well as projects. So we do believe that we get a really great coverage as it relates to that testing. And this report, we are happy to note that there were no exceptions in that testing. So no non-compliance with respect to the ballot text or any expenditures not meeting the purpose of those bonds. And I'll just scroll. So, I talked a bit about how we do the sampling, and I think it's an important component to what we do. This page of the report really walks you through some of that. Under the methodology, we really talk through what we looked at, how we selected our sample, and what our coverage looked like in the end. So for example, if you look at number 3 under that methodology section, while we looked at 17 transactions, totaling 2.2 million, and which was over 76% of the total. That's a very large coverage of expenditures as it relates to audit sampling in general. And then for measure N, we were over 88%. So as I mentioned, we feel really confident with the coverage that we get in this level of testing. And then because this is also still an audit, we do also provide for you a letter to governance. Again, you've heard me say this when I've presented the district's reports to you. This communication letter is designed to provide information to you that's really outside the course of the audit. Did we have difficulties dealing with management? Did we have difficulties completing the audit? Were there any other elements of the audit that we, outside the report, that we needed to communicate to you that might be of significance? And so we didn't have any difficulties that we would be reporting in this letter. So as you read through that letter, you'll find that there's nothing of concern for you to know. And with that, as always, if there's questions or comments or anything that I can address, I'm happy to.
All right, I am not seeing anything in the chat. Again, more good news. We definitely always appreciate that. It kind of makes us, I guess, speechless.
Thank you, Ms. Grosby.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right. So moving on to 8.3, budget and LCAP update.
Good evening, board. This is our public hearing, our preliminary budget. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Next slide, please. So we'll give you a quick update on the state budget. Our budget assumptions as we build the budget, our multi-year projections. Mr. Komnick will talk about the annual LCAP, and we have a timeline for you. Next slide. So you've seen this slide and you remember what happened a year ago when the pandemic hit, and we thought, you know, the state was projecting a $54 billion deficit, and that was going to impact our funding, all K-12 funding. And now this year, the state's looking at a almost $76 billion surplus. So what a difference a year makes. And so just a reminder of the volatility of California's budget. Next slide. So this is what we know to date. The Senate and the Assembly have reached an agreement on most of the budget, especially related to K-12 education, and they have to submit it by June 15th. The governor has until the 30th. He may agree or disagree on some items of the budget. And we talked at the last board meeting that those changes will come to you in July. The legislature proposes a supplemental grant increase of 3.3% versus what the governor proposed of taking the concentration grant from 50% of the base to 65% of the base. So this would be less money for us, but more districts would receive funding. And so that's probably why they're proposing this. As you recall, we had to go out for a TRAN to borrow money because the state was not paying us on time. And the legislature proposes completely paying off all of the deferrals. And so that will be great that we won't have to continue with borrowing. There's also proposals to reduce pension obligations. So that again will take our expenditures down, which is really important. And we'll continue to monitor the state budget, and those updates will come to you as we move through the next several weeks. Next slide. This chart you've seen before. It shows the proposed increases in LCFF funding, and then just what it costs to keep service the salary schedule. So I'm going to take you down one column. The first one, in 2021, we had a slight increase. We had a 0% COLA, but there's always updates with ADA and enrollment. So it's just a slight about $92,000 we received. Gave a 2% salary increase to all employees of $9.7 million. Step and columns, $5.8 million. Last year, when the budget was adopted, PERS and STIRS was reduced, so that helped a little, reduced by $3.7 million. Health and welfare up $3.4 million. Still, we do a really good job. The health and the benefits committee does a really good job negotiating. So total increases of $15.3 million, but really not a COLA to offset that cost. In 21-22, we expect to get a 5.07 COLA, so about $24 million. This does not include whatever will happen with the supplemental concentration. We're not sure. We've reserved about $12 million in case that 3.3% increase goes through for supplemental and concentration. So down each row, you see the costs that are projected, and the $24 million for 21-22 has to cover the costs for both 2020-21 and next year and the budget year. And then we do projections because we're required to do multi-year projections to ensure that we can cover our expenditures moving forward. And you see that the costs continue to go up each year. 22-23 could be a very challenging year. And that just depends on our enrollment. We're going to know a lot more in September and October and for the first interim report. But you'll see such a small increase in 22-23 on that first line. And that's because we're projecting where we have that loss of enrollment that we experienced this current year. So the increase in funding from the current year through 23-24 is about 41 million. And then you see, and that's all the way to the right. And then you see each of those other costs, the cumulative increase, total major cost increases for this time period, 63 million. So, you know, the revenue doesn't cover those costs by about $22 million. Next slide.
Are you on a different slide? You mentioned 63 million. I don't see that on here. What do you?
On the second to the last row, on the right column.
It's 63.1.
I had Gwen's face over it. Thank you.
Mr. Tillman, was that your question? Because before she went to the next slide, I was going to ask you.
It was not.
Okay, you want to go ahead and ask?
Yeah. So the slide before, can we go to that one first? Okay. So the number you said is 3.3%. That type of increase is different than the one that the governor proposed, increasing the LCFF concentration. You had said that number you thought might be 24 million. And what number is this going to be, the 3.3%?
Approximately 12 million. Now, the LCFF calculator that we're required to use, FCMAT calculator, isn't updated for this, so Janet had to do it manually. So as soon as it's released and as soon as we know the exact adopted budget by the end of the month, we will have that updated number for you.
Okay, and in the next slide, so just so I'm clear, because it says increases in LCFF funding. Am I to assume all these numbers are ongoing or not?
Yes, these are the COLAs.
Okay, so the 24 million, even though you showed 2 million in 2022, 2023, that's going to be on top of the 24 million, right?
Correct. That's correct.
And the 14 million is on top of that ongoing, right?
Correct.
Okay. So
as long as the COLAs come through as projected.
And does this number include that 3.3% you were talking about?
No. So if you look at the very bottom, Mr. Tillman, does not include pending state approval of increased supplemental funding estimated at 12 million. And that is, could have strings attached.
That's not showing up, right? You're not going down, there's my screen.
Okay, it's at the bottom of the slide.
Your bar, Mr. Tillman, if you move your bar, hover over the dark part to the left, it'll go away and you can see the whole slide.
Yeah, I'm hovering, it's not going away.
It's already at the bottom. But remember too, Mr. Tillman, even though, Janie, go back to that previous slide, even though, Mr. Tillman, we're talking about that $3.3 million, keep in mind, at 3.3%, remember though, whether or not it's going to be a supplemental grant increase or concentration, there's no, there has not been any decision yet made at that legislative level yet. They're still going back and forth. So that it could be supplemental or it could be concentration. Right now, we don't know, and we won't know until the final budget is approved. So they're going back and forth. So,
well, Mr. Irvin, I'm real good at predicting this. I can guarantee it's going with 3.3%.
Well, I'll just interject. We've heard today this is something that the governor is a staunch supporter of, and so he may go to battle for this particular initiative.
Yeah, he will. He'll do what they tell him to do. The next slide, though. But thank you. The next slide. So ultimately, on the this $21 million, where you say is in red. It's red because you're saying that even with the new money, with the current expenditures, we're still going to be short. Or you're not saying that? You're saying
yes, I am saying that, and that, you know why, Mr. Tillman? Because we're declining in enrollment while costs are going up. Now, this projects that of the 2,200 students that did not attend school this year, that we will get 1,000
of those students coming back. It could be more, could be better, right? And so that's always the challenge when you're declining in enrollment, yet your costs are going up.
And I do want to say that we're dealing with an issue that we've never ever dealt with before, right? We've never had a situation where we have this virus, and therefore you have some parents who are still going to be concerned about sending their kids back to school. And I want to commend the superintendent and the district staff for making sure that we have a robust virtual learning that we're going to continue, the virtual academy, I believe Mr. Irvin is calling it. So I think that's important also, but you still have parents that are going to be concerned. And so we don't know how that's going to affect the numbers. So I can't emphasize enough how I think we need to err on the side of caution. And if Mr. Sullivan in the future shows us a projection where I don't have this red number, or as soon as he can zero out the red number, then I think, we can talk in terms of increasing ongoing costs. But right now, somehow those costs have to be mitigated. And I guess I'll wait to hear later in the presentation on what we're talking about in terms of.
Yeah, I would recommend that too, Mr. Tillman, because we have a lot more presentations to go. And I think some of those questions on how we're going to mitigate that using our ESSER $2 and $3 it will address that. Okay. So as we go through it, let's be able to hit that head on as we get closer.
Yeah, and you made a good point when you said ESSER, because it's going to come down to that same concern though, because ESSER is one-time money, and my big concern is the ongoing money. And I think it can be a great thing if we spend the one-time money on all the things that you all want to do. I think that's great. But the confusing part is going to be at the same time, we have to align our ongoing costs, but what's going to hit after the 23-24. This is the only thing that concerns me about this presentation, because really the big hit is going to be 24-25 when all the one-time money is gone. Or am I missing something?
Well, let's go through the presentation. I think some of that will be answered, and then we can talk more about the 3.3% ongoing, or is it going to be the 15% ongoing from the concentration increase? And then there's some other cost savings dollars. So let's go through it, and then we may be able to tackle that and have some conversations around it.
So we're on this, so we don't have to go back to this slide. Dr. Flores, was your question on this slide?
Yes, it is. Janie and Mr. Irvin, going down to the bottom of 2020 to 21, it's 15,200,000 plus, right? So that was that's this year's budget, right? And so what is our, it's covered though, right?
Yes, this year we had some other savings, Dr. Flores, as you've asked about, from the closure, right? And we also got some one-time funds. It's just that most of those items, those costs continue year after year, right? So even though it was mitigated this year, the costs still continue in the future years, unless we make some reductions.
So why doesn't it show up in 21-22?
So in 21-22 is when we get this COLA of 5.07. That is a compounded COLA that was for this year and next year. So they didn't give us a COLA this year. So the COLA they're giving us next year is for both years, plus an additional about 1%. And so you kind of have to put the 2 years together.
So the 24 million is COLA for this year and next year.
Correct.
So why do we have red?
Because we didn't get the COLA this year. They're giving us a COLA next year for both years. They didn't give it to us this year.
I know for the fall. Oh, I see. For the following year. Okay.
Yeah.
For 21-22.
For 21, right? For 2021 and 21-22, Dr. Flores. I see what you're saying, but yes, it's for 2 years.
It's 5.07. Right, but it's for 21-22 and 22-23, correct?
No, it was it was for 2021, so the current year, and next year, we're getting the COLA all next year.
Oh, okay.
The small 92,000 that you see was just an adjustment for ADA.
Okay, so we don't know if we'll get a COLA next year.
We are getting in 21-22 a 5.07% COLA, which is that 24 million at the top.
Right.
And then we have COLAs built out into each of the following years. It's just in 22-23, we have to recognize that loss in enrollment. We've been able to use 19-20 for this year and next year, but in 22-23, we have to recognize our loss in enrollment.
Did you correct this for vacancies that will incur in both certificated and classified?
No, we'll show that one-time savings on another slide. Ms. King does build in attrition rates based on historical trends.
So it hasn't been built in and projected for 22-23.
You know, I'd have to. It is built into the budget. Yes, it is built into the budget. She has to project it, Dr. Flores. So what she does is she takes when we look at step and column, folks roll on the salary schedule and budget, it shows what that step and column costs. We know what health and welfare costs, and there's going to be vacancies and attrition throughout the year. She does offset in the budget for vacancies. So this is just to illustrate how the cost of servicing a salary schedule. And it doesn't take into account
I would like to see specifically how she did it so that we can look at the numbers to see if the projections are, I just would like to see it.
And that's in the multi-year. That's in the multi-year.
Okay, all right.
Right, and then also it's in the multi-year, but also if we can, Madam President, let's just go through the presentation and stop for questions, because I think some of these may be answered as we go through it, because we've still got a lot of slides to go.
Yes.
Okay,
that is my goal, without having to come back to this slide, since we had some questions.
Okay. We might have to come back afterwards.
I wanted the questions asked that Mr. Tillman had asked, you had asked, and now we're going to move through the remaining.
Okay, great.
Mr. Tillman, okay, hold on. That's what I was going to ask you, Mr. Tillman. Did you have something to follow up on this one before she continues on, and then we'll take the questions at the end?
I do, and it's very important. I appreciate the line of questioning that Dr. Flores had, but when we're doing the budgets and projecting what the expenditures are versus the revenue, because a person leaves a position does not mean it's a cost savings. Because if the board doesn't make a decision, then those positions can be filled again. So I just want to make sure that we don't get the impression that because someone vacates a position, that unless this board takes action, that position won't cost you something in the next fiscal year, because unless we say that we're going to freeze those positions, there's still going to be a cost associated with them. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and take it through from here.
Next slide. Good questions. Thank you. So you've seen this chart before. You know, when the laws changed and there was our pensions, the state pensions were underfunded, the state controlled pensions. And so you can see how much PERS and STRS has gone up over time. It's quite significant. So that's part of the reason that those incurring costs continue to grow on the salary schedule. Next slide. So this chart is from School Services of California, and it's illustrating, so the state of California is still growing. It's just the growth has slowed down and the population is aging. And what you'll see in the 2018-19 chart is almost 6.2 million children in K-12 education. Then in 2019-20, just you see that slight decrease of about 20 to 30,000 students. And then the year of the pandemic, the current year, there was quite a loss across the state of more than 160,000 students. So Again, we're hoping, you know, some of the younger students will, maybe the parents decided to keep them home for the year, that we will see those students. And I know Superintendent Irvin and the team are really working on that. And we have our demographers ready to just work all summer just to try and figure out where we'll be as soon as school starts. And so we hope to see for 21-22 that bar to go back up. Next slide. This slide illustrates our district and what the trends have been over many, many years. You can see where we used to be very close to 60,000 students. Now in the 90s, as you're aware, Kaiser Steel and Norton Air Force Base closed. And after that, there were some drastic declines. But if you look since about 2012-13, it's been a very slow decline. And part of it, and Mr. Pace has done a lot of work with looking at other urban districts. The cost of living is cheaper here. And so our decline is slower than like LA. And so that's good. And so it's hopeful as well. You see that big drop for 1920 because of the pandemic, much, 2,200 students, far more than we've experienced in many years. Typically, we lose about 350 students. And so we built into our projections that we assume at least 1,000 will come back and then continue to assume the 0.5% decline. This will get updated by the first interim report because we will have had seabeds by October. So we will have a good indication of what our numbers are going to look like. Next slide. And then just a caution, as decline and districts that are in decline, it's very challenging because year over year, if you're declining, especially if you're declining at a higher rate. So this chart illustrates really what we built into our 22-23 school year. When you lose enrollment, so we figured we lose 1,000 students, we apply a 94% attendance rate, we take our ADA times the average cost, or not the average amount we receive per student, and it's lost about $12.3 million. If you adjust the teaching FTEs through attrition, you save about $3.5 million, and then books and supplies. So there's still a loss of $8.7 million, and that has to come from other places in the budget. So the larger the decline, the more challenging it is for a district. Again, this slide just illustrates it cannot just be adjusted through reductions in teaching FTEs. Next slide. At the last board meeting, several of the board members requested how exactly did we spend all of the one-time dollars we received since the pandemic, since a year ago, March. It was just under $92 million. If you go to the next couple of slides, we'll do one at a time. We'll share with you how we spent those dollars. Next slide. This was for the safe learning environment, $20.4 million. And furniture moves, air purifiers and filters, hand washing stations, hand sanitizer stations, signage, furniture, temperature scanners, drinking fountains, and plexiglass. So that's how $20.4 million was spent. On the next slide illustrates the instructional support of $50 million, technology devices, connectivity and infrastructure, instructional materials, for teachers and students, planning, coordination, return to in-person additional hours, and teacher support. Now, this was just the one-time dollars. This was not the, our whole budget. These were how we use these one-time dollars. And so and the purpose of the dollars was to ensure a safe learning environment and distance learning. And so that's how these dollars were applied, and continuity of operations. So the next slide shows we continued serving meals. Over 7 million meals were served last year or through this year. And then continuity of operations, part of the budget language did not allow for layoffs or anything of the sort. And as you know, we have a structural deficit, so we use some to help with our budget as well. and that was 21.4 million. Next slide. And then now we're at our preliminary multi-year projection. I'm going to go down one aisle. I won't go through each column because you're all very familiar with a multi-year projection, but for those that may not be, David, can you, or Daniel, can you click once? So here's our budget year, 21-22. Our revenue of 520 million, less our contributions to special ed, restricted maintenance, and other programs we're required to contribute to, less our expenditures of 533 million. We're using 14.8 million, projecting to use that much of our ESSER funding. And so that 14.8 is included, has reduced the number to get to 533 above. We're still deficit spending or projecting to of 12.8 million. We expect our beginning balance to be 72.5 million and ending balance 59.7. And then the components of the ending balance are below. We have to have reserves for stores, our economic uncertainty, which is a 2% of 18.7 million, assigned for deficit spending over the next couple of years of 28.6. And then we have the assigned of 12.2 million, which is the lesser of the two proposals between the governor and the legislature. This would take the supplemental to 23.3%. And so if you can click one more time, just want to highlight the dollars that we'll be using to help with that budget deficit. And to Mr. Tillman and Superintendent Irvin's point, by the time we get to 23-24, we have to have all of this in balance so that we can have a balanced budget and we can't rely on one-time dollars. So a plan will be in place so that that gets more in balance the closer we get to 23-24. And one more click. And this just illustrates that we're still deficit spending, even though we are using some of those one-time dollars. Next slide. And then our ending fund balance. I won't go through all of this. You're all very familiar. This is our combined general fund, which includes our restricted funds, which includes the ESSER funds over the next 3 years. Next slide. I think it was Dr. Flores and a couple of board members that requested, how much do you think we saved from the closure? Now, the year's not over, and we will not know until September. But this is our projection by major category. So this is, we project a savings of 41.9 million. Next slide. We like to share with you what the average reserve levels are across the state of California. Unified school districts at the end of last year had an average of 18.82%. We have 4.3%. We expect to be up to about over 9% at the end of this year.
And can I jump in, Janie?
Sure.
This is really an important point, because as we look at sort of the volatility in state funding, we really do need to look at our reserve levels and where we want to be as a district. If you look at the averages statewide, those are high percentages, and they protect against some of that volatility. But when we look at kind of 1920 for SBC, 4.3% is woefully low for a district of our size to remain, to sustain our operations and support, considering some of the volatility that we see in the past and then also potentially going forward. And we only need to look back to last year to see how we went from a decent budget during the governor's January proposal to staring down 10% cuts across the board. So the reserve levels is something that, along with sort of addressing the structural deficit, is the work that me coming in and the team will work on to really create a budget that can support all the initiatives and supports for our students to be successful, but also maintains and ensures our fiscal solvency for the long term.
And I want to be able to add to the board that's having a conversation with Janie and Mr. Sullins. I agree 100%. We've definitely got to look at our reserve levels, because 4.3%, and again, with the volatility of last year, you know, you're really only talking, Janie and Harold, correct me if I'm wrong, that's really about 2 to 3 weeks of payroll, even that, if we're lucky.
About 2
And
weeks.
then Janie, I think you have to go back to slide 15, because I do think it's important that we explain to the board on the line number 3 on how those ESSER dollars are being used, because I think that line number 3 maybe might need some additional clarification.
Yes, so line number 3, I showed on the previous slide as well, is how we're using those to do continuation of operations. And then Superintendent Irvin and the team will bring to you, we shared with you a broad picture last time of the areas we'd be spending those dollars. And so once we know the state budget, he will be bringing all of this together. But on line 3, we'll be using those ESSER funds to help with that budget deficit. Now, again, this is preliminary, and we're hoping with the enrollment that it goes back up, and that's going to help the picture, but we do have a structural deficit, and the ESSER funds will help with that deficit. Thank you. Next slide. Go ahead.
I would just add, you know, right now, as Jenny pointed out, it is preliminary. So if we engage and do some of the work in sort of identifying opportunities within the budget, there may be less reliant on some of these ESSER funds going forward, because we've been able to do some other things to get the budget in line. So right now, preliminary, this is what's going to support the budget and the deficit spending that's occurring. But that doesn't mean that will necessarily continue to be used as we sort of work to refine and get our budget back in line in some areas.
And if I may, Mr. Sullins, just to add to that, board, Janie had already started budget subcommittees that are groups of stakeholders, site leaders, and parents and staff from throughout the district. So there will be recommendations that those will be shared with Mr. Sullins, so that we're not behind the 8 ball on this. We've been working on this all year because we knew that there was some structural deficits that need to be addressed. So there's some already planning that's going on and input that will be provided to Mr. Sullins and the team.
Thanks, Dr. Menards. We took a little pause when all the new dollars came in, and we were trying to get ready for the start of school, but they do have recommendations. So, and I know the board will want to hear those as well. So again, at the end of this year, we think it will be much closer to a 10% reserve, which is a really good place to be at a minimum. Next slide. Again, you saw this timeline at the last board meeting. The superintendent's entry plan is going to be listening and learning throughout the district. We're going to learn a lot more about the state budget. Again, some of the state budget may have some one-time dollars that can help offset some of the ESSER funds, so we can, you know, move things around. So Mr. Sullins and the team will bring that to you. July 20th, we talked about the cabinet and superintendent bringing back a plan for the use of the dollars, as well as continuing to listen and assessing kids as they come back. So a lot, you know, we won't know until the fall. We will do a budget revision by August 17th. And then in October, an academic achievement report. And we'll also, because Mr. Tillman had shared, we want to make sure that we don't send any money back, that we provide you with where we are on all of these one-time dollars. And that will just become part of our interim. So in December, you'll see that. And then again in March, and it'll just happen each budget presentation, so that you know where we are throughout the next 3 years. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Komnick.
Okay, great. Thank you, Janie. I appreciate that. Good evening, Dr. Dowdy Rogers and Dr. Wyatt, Mr. Irvin, board, cabinet, staff, and stakeholders. Thank you for this opportunity to just provide a brief update on the LCAP during this public hearing opportunity. Next slide, please. I wanted to share with you the robust stakeholder input process that we've put into place for the 2021 school year. Undoubtedly a challenge with the virtual environment, but the community rose to the challenge, I think, as did staff. And just, I can't commend the board enough. Board members present at every meeting. I just total engagement, total active involvement, not sitting on the sidelines, looking in, just part of the process as it should be. Just a complete exemplar of how this should run. Just to recap the highlights of the input process, we had 14 LCAP community meetings, staff meetings as well. We had 8 parent advisory and student advisory group input meetings. We also used and brought into play Thought Exchange, that virtual survey format, if you will, that collected 6,372 comments and ratings combined. And an additional, prior to that, we had the Google surveys. We had another 1,300, over 1,300 survey responses collected during 2021. And just to assure that our public and our board, the LCAP draft is posted on the LCAP website within the district website itself. So the draft is there. It can be reviewed. There's also a link that we've included, a Thought Exchange link, a Google survey link, I believe, that will help capture any additional input that a stakeholder might have after looking through the draft plan. Next slide, please. So just a quick reminder of the stakeholder priorities that emerged themselves through our goals. With goal 1, looking at the academic piece, English proficiency, critical, high school graduation, A to G completion, college and career readiness, a very critical piece. Goal 2 looked at school climate. Really rising to the surface there was social emotional learning as we come out of this pandemic to ensure the health, the mental health and wellness of our students, staff, and community. We also looked at safe, clean environment. I know Ms. Christakis shared the funds that had been shared, that had been utilized to really get our physical learning up to par, exceeding in a lot of ways the cleanliness levels and purification levels consistent with our expectations. And then finally, we had a focus on positive learning environment with our students. In our third goal, we really pushed upon our community involvement and support. We've always had a very steady involvement with our community, with our stakeholders, including our staff and classified and certificated. We really look at our community as partners. We work together for our common good, which is our students. We have a network of alliances with our local organizations, including Cal State San Bernardino, San Bernardino Valley College, and so forth, as well as providing trainings and workshops with the community in mind. They help us decide what's the best workshops or trainings that would serve them, not us telling them what they need. So that is a great opportunity for our stakeholders. Next slide, please. So the next steps, on June 22nd, the board will look to approve the 21-24 LCAP. District will continue to engage our stakeholders throughout the LCAP process during the 21-22 school year. And I want to emphasize process. The LCAP itself is a kind of a physical piece of evidence that really captures the process that's an all-year process. It's not something we do in the spring. It is something that we engage in throughout the year. And the 21-24 LCAP is that. It's a living document, and we'll regularly monitor and the necessary revisions with our new superintendent, Irvin, his visions and coming to our district. We look forward to the positive impact that's going to have, not only on our students, but our community as well. Next slide, please. That is all I have, Ms. Christakis, but thank you for the opportunity for myself to update the board and the public.
Thank you, Mr. Komnick. And that's it.
All right. Thank you again for the presentation. So we'll go back to our questions and comments. Mr. Tillman?
Can we go back to the slide that had the 4% on it? No, you went past it. You just went past it.
Right there.
So,
right there.
So this 4.3%, that was 4.3% of the general fund, and that was unaudited actuals?
Yes, for 1920, yes. but it's going to be a little higher this year.
So that number was what, $28 million or something like that?
No, it was 30 on the unrestricted general fund. I had it right here. I think it was 36 million. Let's pull it up.
So you talking about $800 million then?
No, 1% is about 7 million. So last year, the unrestricted general fund for 1920 was $54.3 million.
And I'm saying, right, and that was, so the total budget that was against was how much?
I'm sorry?
So what was the other 76? I'm just trying to get the big number. This is 4% of what?
The total general fund, average unrestricted general fund plus Fund 17 ending balances. So of all the expenditures.
And I guess, so you don't know what that number is. I just want to get a feel. I know the total budget is $700 million. So if you're saying 4.3% was.
I'll get you the calculation.
Yeah, because I just want to make sense to me. Right now, it's not making sense in my head. And the only other thing I want to say is there's a difference between ending balances and reserve. And so I'm not going to be here and say I want to have 10% of the budget in reserve. Ongoing, what has benefited us is we've had substantial ending balances, but all that money wasn't in a quote unquote reserve, right? But you were able to use it to help you get through tough times. So
the
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Danny. I'm sorry.
So because we have new people, I think it's important. I'm not saying it's okay to have a line item that says I have $100 million in a reserve, and therefore my ending balance is $200 million. I'm not in the general fund. I don't think that's a good thing. That means that we took a whole bunch of money and didn't spend it on kids of that year. So that's not the goal I'm trying to get at. What I am trying to get at is to have substantial ending balances. And I wouldn't care if the reserve part was only the mandated 2%, because you're still able to use that money to get you through tough times. And why do I say that? Because I've lived it. And there were times throughout the years when we went through tough times where we had an ending balance of $100 million, we were able to use that money to avoid layoffs. But it wasn't because we had huge reserves. I'm not here saying we should have a 10% reserve. So, and if you guys are saying that, you need to say it so I understand what you're saying. But on the other hand, that's the least of our worries right now, because right now we're in tough times. And what I need to have, and I'm glad Mr. Solon has spoken up tonight, because you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're going to spend money on a new position and find a way to offset ongoing. Normally, I don't like projected estimates on a budget in the out years, but this is a unique time because there is money ending in 23, 24. I think we need to come back and have a presentation that shows what we're projecting for that next year, because that's the year I have concerns about, because that's when all the one-time money is gone, and you short yourself in the number in red. You can you go back to that slide where you show the ESSER?
Yeah, but Mr. Tillman, I hear what you're saying there, but so and I hear what you're saying about the 4.3%, and we'll come back with you with that number. However, I'm not sure, Janie and Harold, if we're including some of those cost savings or some of those dollars in those dollars set aside for economic uncertainty. So I understand what Mr. Tillman is saying, but I do think, Mr. Tillman, that you're gonna have to wait for us to continue to review the budget. We're gonna have to wait for the governor's final budget to come forward, because again, I hear what you're saying, because again, we don't know because what we have to do, and when you and I talked a little bit about this, we have to know what is our bottom line. So even if it's 914 million, we're going to have to still deduct the total number of students or the declining enrollment from that number and still continue to employ all the employees with those dollars that we currently have. And then when you talk about new positions, we're already having those conversations about, can we add additional positions if we need to, using either that 3.3% from the supplemental or the 15% from the concentration. So we're not even using those dollars right now. So we have a plan to offset that. We're just gonna have to be patient because one, I'm still new. Mr. Selden still's got to get on board to get acclimated. And then most importantly, we do not know what the governor is going, what's the final budget going to look like. But I do agree with you that we have to take into consideration that you're right. We do have declining enrollment. We know that, but I will tell you this, even though we have a declining enrollment, we do have to compete for our market share of students because we do have 5,000, 5,500 students, for example, just hypothetically in charters. That impacts our budget by $60, $70 million a year alone. And then we know there's students out there who did not come back last year, over 2,000. So there's a lot of other things that we have to do to recover some of these dollars. But you do make a good point.
But Mr. Urban, this part, and I'm really talking to Mr. Sullivan, because in the end, I'm going to look to him to tell me that he's comfortable with the numbers. And the number I'm looking at right now is on this page. And tell me what I'm missing, because maybe I'm missing something here. On the line where you have the red for $39 million, and then you have the $45 million, but the numbers above that, where it says total revenues is $832 million projected for 2023, 2024, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have below that, the expenditures are $877 million, correct? And you're telling me that we're able to balance the budget because of this one-time money. So my question is, when I get to 2024, 2025, what's going to replace these two red numbers to balance my budget? The only way to get a balanced budget is either to increase the revenues, which are short by $40 million, right? Or you're going to have to reduce your expenditures. And you told me everything that you have projected is going to come in terms of revenues. So my point is, in order to go to deal with the ongoing expenditures, the only way to do is make cuts. But or am I missing something here? Or is this only one-time money, only one-time spending for sure? It's going to go away? Is that what it is?
So, Mr. Tillman, we can add a year on, and it will have to assume reductions in expenditures.
That's my point.
Can we go back one slide?
Yeah.
Go back one more slide. This is the general fund. So, Danny, I gave you the total. Look at line 5 on 2021. The 32.3 million, that was the unrestricted general fund balance. And you divide that by the total expenditures of 752 million on the combined general fund. That's how you get the 4.3%. So you're welcome. So what Janet and Mr. Solons can have for you is the 24-25 year. And we'll show, because costs still go up, right? It might be best to see what that looks like after we know the enrollment.
Exactly.
And so with the first interim, or even I can, suggesting something before December, once we know what the enrollment is, will help, a lot. But it will, based on what we know right now, will require a reduction of, 45 million plus whatever the costs go up the following year. But that's just assuming that, so the district's going to start doing stuff next year. They're going to develop a plan. We already have some ideas.
But Ms. Christakis, that direction has to start now. My fear is this. The time can help us in two different ways. It can help us if we start now to plan for that. And as positions become vacant, we freeze them. And I don't even have a plan. I don't have a problem if your plan is we're gonna freeze 200 positions, but the new superintendent wants to add another 20 for counselors or whatever it is. But somebody has to be realistic about the fact that the key is you have to find a huge amount of cost savings, and you got to find even more if you're talking about adding positions. And I just want to make sure that discussion is starting now, and there's a sense of urgency. Because that has to happen now. If it doesn't happen now, This is the first time ever they've told us you have declining enrollment and we're going to let you go 2 years before you have to realize and structure your budget to factor that in. We were lucky the state did that. But that day becomes, the day of reckoning becomes after this one-time money is gone. And that's what my fear is. And if I'm missing something, Mr. Sellers, just tell me, hey, no, you're wrong. There's nothing to worry about. There's plenty of money and there's really no need for cuts. Just tell me that and I'll be quiet.
No, and I appreciate the thoughtful dialogue because it is important. And yes, you're right. You know, when you're dealing with a sizable deficit, yeah, reductions are definitely, you know, part of the meal, so to speak. But there are other things that this is what we know now. We know that, again, depending on the governor's, you know, the enacted state budget, we'll know whether we're going to have the 3.3% supplemental or the 15% in concentration. So that provides additional resources to support maybe some additional initiatives that we're thinking about, but also it provides resources where we can look at opportunities to leverage that ongoing source to sort of deal with some of what we're dealing with. The other piece is on our restricted side. There are restricted ongoing sources that we have, Title I and other programs that we look at and see, are there opportunities where we're funding something on the unrestricted side that we could fund out of those restricted ongoing sources. So never saying that it's going to get us all the way there. Reductions have to be on the table. But when we think about a sense of urgency, I'm very grateful to Ms. Christakos because her and her team have already started that work as was mentioned earlier in the presentation. The budget committee was assembled. They have recommendations. So that work has started. So I believe there is a sense of urgency. And I think once we fully understand what the state budget picture is, we'll have a better idea of what we're dealing with in terms of addressing it long-term, that 24-25, so that we get the budget in great shape.
Thank you.
So thank you.
And also, Mr. Tillman, I agree with you that we have to be concerned about 24-25. We're 100% in agreement, but remember this, we're starting now. One, we have to compete for market share of those students where we see this declining enrollment. So that's why now we're looking at how do we increase our pre-K and K enrollment. We have to be on the ground. Secondly, how do we mitigate that decline in enrollment? That means the 2,000 students from last year, where are they? That's why we have to put youth services specialists on the ground. We have to put student services mentors on the ground. We have to put our ASWs on the ground. We have to go out and do a huge campaign. And that's why we've been talking about breaking the district up into a service delivery model so it's a little bit more manageable to go out and find those students. Once we start to mitigate that, we're going to recover some of those dollars as well. And then also overall attendance. How do we make sure we recuperate that? So there are some things that we can do. And also really keep in mind, Mr. Sullivan nailed it. We're going to look at that 3.3%. And that could be another 12 million ongoing every year. But also you have that concentration from that 15%, I mean, the 50% to 65%, that could be another 24. Now, is it going to be enough to reduce the deficit in 24-25? I don't know that. That's a conversation I got to have with Mr. Sullivan because we agree with you, Mr. Sullivan. We don't know, but we have to put the systems and structures in place now in order to mitigate that long term. And remember this, we always have dollars that are left over or excess dollars from our LCAP dollars as well, LCAP. We always have money left over that we can utilize as well if we have to. So we just have to be very strategic, very diligent. We have to look at our budget. And if we don't need to use dollars, and if there's things we find in the budget that makes no sense, we're going to cut those things out. The goal would be is to increase enrollment, but we also want to avoid layoffs in the long term. And that's why we have to look at our outside partners to help us with some of these positions if we have to. So just be patient with us, give us the next 6 months, let us go on a listening learning tour, give Mr. Sullivan 6 months to get settled in with the team. And as we bring over the service delivery model, we are going to be thinking 24-25, and we're going to backwards map that. But let's be clear. We have to use some of these ESSER dollars to help reduce that deficit over the next 3-4 years. Now, it is a lot of money, Mr. Tillman. I am not going to disagree with you. That's a lot of ESSER dollars. But at 24, 25, we got to have a plan, because if not, we're going to still have a structural deficit. And we're trying to avoid that. And that's why we're putting systems in place now. And I'm not sure if anybody else on the team have any thoughts on that, but I think that we hear you, Mr. Tillman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Flores?
Yes, let's stay on this slide. In 2020, 2021, line 3, I guess I don't understand why we have a 20 million deficit and it's on operations, when we had savings since nobody was in school.
So Dr. Flores, that's just showing, I wanted you to know that that is 20 million we used from the those first rounds of funds to reduce our expenditures on line 2. So I'm just showing you that line 2 would have been 20 million higher had we not used those funds. That's all.
But nobody was using the buildings.
So you can see on line 4 where we project that our revenues exceed our expenditures by 40 million.
Correct.
So our beginning balance was 32 in the unrestricted, and it will grow to 72 million for this.
Right.
This is our projection for this year, which is going to help us in the years out.
So, but you show it as a deficit, but it really isn't a deficit.
No, I wanted to just share that we used 20 million to reduce
from the ESSER,
yes,
ESSER,
correct,
and then added it to the 72 for the balance, ending balance.
Reduced expenditures on line 2. So line 2 would have been 20 million higher, but we used this 20 million because you have to show how you use it for continuation of operations in the report. So the expenditures would have been 20 million higher, but we were able to use ESSER funds to reduce the expenditures.
So we wouldn't have had a beginning balance of 32. We would have had a beginning balance of 12.
We wouldn't have had an ending balance of 40. We would have had an ending balance of 20 at the excess line 4. So our beginning balance was from the audit, and that was from the beginning of the end of 19.
But this was only for unrestricted general funds.
Correct.
It wouldn't show all the other funds that we saved and all the other categories. Correct.
Correct. This is just the unrestricted.
This is just
really
so we do
really
have
important.
money. So we have money in other areas that were what do you say? Flipping over, right? What is that term?
So carrying it over,
right?
So that's the
there's
line
more.
4.
So there's more than 72.5 carryover if we were to add all the other categories, right?
So the 72 is what we think we'll have for unrestricted. If you go to the next slide.
Well, stay there for a minute. Okay,
so
then we'll go back to that one. Go ahead. Tell me.
Okay, so this is combined, Dr. Flores, and so this would have, so but this is includes restricted, so those dollars are restricted for Title I or RDA. So the most important, really important is that our unrestricted general fund has the money that we need.
So the combined funds would be 89.8.
Yes.
Balance.
That's correct. That's our projection. That's what we project, and we will know in September after the books are closed.
Yeah. And I also have a problem like Mr. Tillman in the projections, because it's not real. It's just projecting status quo numbers, and we don't really know if we would have savings or if we get another COLA. And this is based on zero COLA, right? The 45 million.
So the slide before, no, we assume the COLAs that that the Department of Finance shares with us. We include the COLAs. So we have projected COLAs in the projections. And we're
why is it 45.3 million? That's
45.
when it's 12.8 in 2022 to 2023.
I'm sorry, what line are you on, Dr. Flores?
4.
She's on line 4.
So that's a deficit.
Right, a deficit. Why is it projecting such a high deficit?
Because we're spending more than we're getting. So if you go to the previous slide, so this has a lot of restricted dollars. You can see in 23-24 that we're deficit spending projection of 4.5 because we're using 39.3 of the ESSER funds. And so the next year would be a $45 million. If we didn't deficit, if we didn't do anything, we wouldn't have enough money for the minimum reserves.
Mm-hmm.
So on the restricted, because it's restricted and can have carryover, you may get your revenue. For example, we could get, let's say, revenue this year, and it's, let's say we get some of the ESSER funds, ESSER 2. And let's say we get 100 million, but we can't spend it all this year, but we got the revenue this year, then we would have carryover, but the expenditures would be higher because we recognize the revenue. In some of the programs, you don't recognize the revenue until you earn it. They're all different, but restricted has more carryover for very specific grants and different things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I need to see things a little bit more than categories because I'm not clear on why the expenditures are growing higher.
Yes. So that's a great question.
More than doubled. And so for the projection of 2023, 2024, and 24, 25.
The expenditures on line 2, Dr. Flores?
Expenditures, operations, like what Danny said. Okay, what are the categories that we have to hit that are the ones we have to meet, and where are we going to cut back, or where are we going to do attrition and not play it forward, because if you're keeping like numbers, you're just projecting and you're hypothesizing, and so you're a doom and gloom projection, and it's not real to me.
So Dr. Flores, we're happy to go over this with you in more detail. The expenditures grow each year on line 2 by a reasonable amount to service the salary schedule, but you see that the revenues don't go up as quickly. And the ESSER funding is a projection on what we'll do to help offset the deficit. The further away you get from today, it's a projection. It's not a prediction. It's just what our best guess based on our costs and historical. So we look at historical and what we've spent, and we look to the future. So we're
on number one, are those all the expenditures, all the revenues, even including concentration, supplemental funds, or is that just LCFF, the base?
It's all unrestricted, and supplemental concentration is in unrestricted. So yes.
So what would be the total? Is that the next slide?
The total is with restricted funds. So your supplemental concentration are unrestricted. So they're on this slide.
So they're unrestricted.
Mm-hmm. They're in the unrestricted general fund.
So combined, they'll be on the next slide though.
Right. Can I see the combined?
So the combined includes your federal dollars and other grants and entitlements.
Mm-hmm. And what would be I see the carryover over here. Okay, so in 2023 and 2024, well, the year before, there's a 82.8 million ending balance projected. And even with that amount, we're gonna have 3 and 4, 39.3 and 45.3 deficit.
The deficit will be the 45.3.
Okay.
And see how it takes that beginning balance of 82 million less 45, it takes it down to 37.5 million combined general.
Okay, so that would be the ending balance after that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the projection. So we're not in a deficit in the ending balance.
In the combined, no, we are not, because we're using ESSER funds to help us. And so Mr. Tillman brought up a good point. When you get to 24, 25, if there's no plan in place, we wouldn't have enough.
Right.
And so, and we're required by law to do this because you don't want to wait till you get to the year that you have no money. And then, so.
Okay. One last comment. I'm with Mr. Tillman on not increasing the reserve. 4.3 million of a 700 million budget. I didn't even put these on there because I didn't do it. It would be around 300, what was it? 300, let me look. I'm sorry. It would be 30,100,000 in reserves. So anyway.
Did you say you're not in favor of increasing the reserve?
I do not approve. I think we should keep it at whatever it's going to be. I think is it going to be 10% and leave it at that?
So I would say that so here's the thing though, Dr. Flores and team. If we come back and the district is recommending a higher reserve, just say hypothetically, that's fine, because we understand that not every board member is may not agree with something such as that. Then the board, just votes on it, and that's fine. The board always can take it to a vote. However, I do think we got to look at the reserve, because 4.3 only having a 2 or 3 week enough for salaries, that's concerning. But I do think though, Dr. Flores has a good point though, Janie, on the expenditures. I do think if there's a way, Mr. Sullins and Janie, we can come back and show Dr. Flores and the team how those expenditures are ongoing, especially like health and welfare, and then stepping column increases. And the board already knows it, but I do think it would help, Janie, when you show that, even though we show it on this line and it's not broken out, we may be able to better project to the board on why, what are those expenditures and why they're increasing or decreasing over the next 3 to 4 years.
In the next, at the next board meeting, Dr. Flores, the book that Ms. King puts together?
Yes.
The budget book. So this is, it's a very tight timeline. So she'll have that all ready for you. And that gives more detail, like you're requesting. So it will have much more detail because it'll have the full budget book for you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Those are good questions though, Dr. Flores. And I do agree with you, Mr. Tillman, that we have to really be concerned about 24, 25. But what I would say to you is be patient, because we need time to do a deep dive into the budget, and then we'll come back with you with some clear numbers. But right now, again, we have to do something to mitigate the declining enrollment and other things. And I do think that we have a plan to do that, but just be patient. We hopefully we'll come back to you. For example, I didn't even mention if we try to recuperate our enrollment and mitigate that, for example, if we increase STEAM academies at every site, that attracts students and that allows us to bring students in. If we look at pre-K and K and how to increase that enrollment, how do we go out and find students who are not in school? So there's a lot of strategies that we have been thinking about that we can put into play that will help. But again, it's all going to depend on the governor's budget and what's going to be our total revenues in 25, 26, or 24, 25. So we got some work to do. But we're just as concerned as everyone else. That's why we're going to have a plan to mitigate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board, for your questions. I don't see any more in there. And I think you captured it, Superintendent Irving, exactly, and the team. The sense of urgency is here now versus later. And so just hearing you all give your suggestions, recommendations of things that you're already doing and not waiting, because we know outside of, this pandemic, ADA is the next, issue, and that is an ongoing issue versus recouping and recovering from where we landed in the midst of this pandemic. So just hearing your urgency and your thoroughness in this presentation is very helpful to us, and then we'll look forward to the next update as we see where we will land. I mean, the reserve is something that we've talked about, at least for me, 6 years. And so we have to come to some kind of happy medium as to what we know we truly are spending on today's, students' money today, and then what we need to do just in case something does happen, because you don't know it's happening until it happens. So thank you all for your presentation. And we'll now move on to 8.4, return to school presentation.
All right, well, good evening, Dr. Rogers, Superintendent Irving, Dr. Volkemer, Board, Cabinet, and Community. I'm happy to be here this evening to share with you just a high-level overview of our return to school roadmap development. This is really going to be a 30,000-foot view to assure you and the whole SBCUSD community that we are ready to welcome our scholars with open arms come August 2nd, and we actually welcomed quite a few of them just yesterday. It was quite a blessing to see them and how excited the children were of all ages. So with that, if I can go to the next slide, please. So objectives for tonight, there are two. Provide an update on the SBCUSD return to school roadmap development. And in that, I will also share a bit about the task force and how that's been developed and when we will be meeting. And then I will turn it over to Dr. Rodriguez, who will give an update on our virtual academy for next school year. And we'll close out with an update on communications from Ms. Ontiveros. Next slide, please. So roadmap to reopening 21-22. So first and foremost, I want to zone your eyes into our tagline. It will be better together, welcome home. As you know, under the direction of Superintendent Irving, we are developing a roadmap for reopening our schools. The reason we really like this tagline of better together, welcome home is because we want our students, our staff, all of our teachers, principals, and most importantly, our scholars to just feel like the district and schools are wrapping our arms around them and bringing them back into our brick and mortar classrooms. We know we're better together. We've been sharing that this whole time. We're in this together. So now we're better together physically when we come back to our schools, making sure that we put the appropriate safety mitigation strategies in place. And so as we continue to build out this roadmap, and we have a draft already, it's looking very nice, we are keeping in mind that we're reimagining and rebuilding our programs, right? As Mr. Irvin just shared, we want to make sure that on the other side of the pandemic, our schools not only attract the students that we have, but continue to attract and find those students that may have left us or students that may be moving into the community, that we keep them with us, right? And so we do that by rebuilding, reimagining our educational programs and supporting our educators in order to deliver the best instruction possible. So with that, let's go to the next slide, and I'll just do a quick reminder. So I want to focus your eyes on the bottom right-hand corner. What is the purpose of this roadmap? There are three key reasons why we've developed this. We want to make sure that everyone has shared understanding of what our reopening looks like, and that they have a reference document that they can refer to. That's both our staff at our schools, our secretaries in the front office, our classroom teachers who are engaging with our parents all the time, but also our parents and our community members, that they can go to our website and they can take a look at this document as well. So shared understanding, reference document. And then finally, we have to, and we're very committed to equity, as you know, board, that has been your goal for many years. We want to make sure that our information is accessible to everybody. So this idea of equitable access to information is really important. And so that's another reason why this roadmap is being developed. So it's one place where lots of information can be found. There are three goals for the roadmap, as I previously shared. First and foremost, we have to make sure we're ensuring a smooth transition to offering in-person learning experiences. And again, yesterday we were out at schools and we saw that smooth transition with a smaller number of our students, but it's a great opportunity for us to make sure that we're ready for when all of our scholars come back. Second goal is to define our academic and social emotional framework and the supports for the acceleration of learning. We've listened to our community, we've heard from our teachers. Everyone is very, wants to make sure that we've got plans in place to accelerate student learning, both on the academic side, but again, the social emotional, you heard that from the LCAP. So that will be part of our roadmap. And then finally, the offering of a virtual academy. Next slide. So our 4 guiding principles, you saw this last board meeting during our special board meeting, a little sneak preview. So our roadmap has these 4 principles running through it. And we have developed, or we broke into work teams to make sure that we have all of the elements in place. Now, fortunately, we've been working on returning to in-person instruction for almost a year now. So we are pulling from a lot of the input that we gathered kind of this time last year from a variety of teachers, counselors, principals, as well as looking at the guidance that we have and just making sure that we've got everything in place. So 4 guiding principles. First, social emotional learning. We want to make sure that we weave that through the plan, both the mental and physical wellness of our scholars, our staff, and our families. So that's woven through the plan in different ways. We need to make sure, of course, that equity, access, and inclusion are included, that we offer high quality learning and academic achievement, and finally, safe facilities and operations. So the next 4 slides, we're going to go a little bit deeper into what each one of these mean. Next slide, please. So the social emotional learning, mental and physical wellness, Dr. Funchess is leading a integrated team. It includes people from HR, it includes people from our student wellness and support staff, it includes members from our unions, and includes some of our head nurse as well. And so the key principles, or the key, I guess, descriptor of this work group and this principle is to make sure that we as a district are on the cutting edge, and we're aligning our work with the current research guidance at the state and local level, and that everything is evidence-based. So as they're going through the plan and we're developing action plans behind it, that we're implementing the most current federal and state health and safety guidance, and that still continues to change, that we're promoting, expanding physical and mental health supports. And I will share that the team has been very thorough about looking what we already have as a district and how do we further expand that and grow that. So not always creating something new, but really shining and making brighter and better what we already have internally. The team's been very thoughtful about that. And then finally, developing and implementing a comprehensive integrated wellness systems for our staff, students, and family. So there's some integration of this with our family engagement office and our health and benefits team. And so bringing all that together, there is a social emotional learning curriculum that has been purchased, and then our teachers will be trained on before we open our doors on August 2nd. And then there's been actual lessons provided for the teachers to work with our students right now in our summer program. So a lot of work going on in that, keeping this at a very high level, but just to rest assured that this is really the heart of where we're going with this roadmap. We have to make sure that we stay very intentional with our social connection and relationship building and nurturing coming out of this pandemic. Next slide, please. The next principle is about equity, access, and inclusion. And again, this is for students, families, and staff. There's really 2 parts of this guiding principle. First one is around communication and making sure that there is equitable communication and access to communication for students, families, and staff. So clear and consistent communications for all stakeholders. Dr. Rodriguez and Ms. Ontiveros are leading this work group together to make sure that we are being very thoughtful about how we're communicating. This work group is also making sure that we demonstrate a commitment for opportunities for all of our scholars, not some, but also, again, thoughtful and cross integration with the 3rd principle around high academic achievement. We have to make sure that our students who have varying needs, those needs are being met. So the last bullet, just to make sure that we're positively impacting outcomes by supporting the needs of all of our students. which include, but are not limited to, the student groups we have listed there, right? Our low-income students, our students with disabilities, our LGBTQ plus students, our students in homeless situations or in foster care, our English learners. We just have to make sure that we're very thoughtful and that no child is slipping through the cracks, as well as their families. So that's that principle. Third principle, which is the one that we speak a lot about, of course, and it is around our high quality learning and academic achievement. You can imagine that Ms. Applegate is leading this team, and she is with her Ed Services team, but it's not limited to Ed Services. We have people from our business services as part of it, because we want to make sure that our business operations are supporting the high quality academic achievement. The descriptor for this work group is to provide a multi-tiered system of support for academic, behavioral, and social emotional needs. So you should hear that there's cross collaboration going on with the other two teams. They want to make sure that that things are equitable, or academics are equitable and inclusive, that we have rigorous instruction going on, and that it's standards-based while focusing on the whole child. So that's that idea of it's not just academic. We have to make sure that when our students walk into our classrooms, that they feel that welcoming, nurturing sense, and that we are addressing whatever need they have so they can demonstrate their brilliance. While this, of course, requires our educators to be supported in building their capacity, so professional development is part of this work and in this work team. And then finally, the expanded learning opportunities. So you heard a lot about our ASAP, right? All the tutoring and extended learning. Our summer program is an example of that. That all plugs into this, this principle right here that's being led by Ms. Applegate. And then finally, the last slide for this part, our roadmap to reopening, is to make sure that our schools and our classrooms and our district office is safe, that we have safe facilities, and that our operations are in alignment with the guidance from the state. You know as a board, but just a reminder to the community that when it comes to the COVID safety requirements, the California Department of Public Health is our guiding force. And so we use that to determine what needs to happen at our school sites, that and in collaboration with our local Department of Public Health. So this work team has been working on this all year since last March. They are making sure that that safety is the top priority, that our classrooms are both safe, both in the sanitized manner, but also physically safe, that we're following the state and local health guidelines, and that we have some system structures and resources to meet the needs of the school community. So a lot of behind the scenes infrastructure that's been put in place, and you've heard a lot of what's been going on and how we've been using the ESSER funds to support this work team. So those are the 4 guiding principles for the roadmap. And so where are we now in terms of the development of the task force? If you could go to the next slide, please. So we have a task force that has just been compiled. The guiding principles will be shared with the task force. You can see the cross section of stakeholders that will be part of this task force. So 3 board members, 8 district administrators. We have 8 union representatives, so 2 people from each one of our unions. We have 4 principals, 2 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school, 9 parents, and they represent our parents from our advisory groups. And we have 5 high school students that serve on the the superintendent student advisory. They will be coming together. Our first meeting will be June 16th, where I will orientate them to the roadmap. Their sole purpose right now will be to give us feedback on the roadmap. Tell us, does what we have in there, does it make sense? Does it meet our need of making sure that information is accessible to our families, our staff, and our students? And is it comprehensible? Is it comprehensive? And are there any pieces that we had forgotten about that we should add? So I will orientate them to the document. They will have a week to read it. Then they'll come back a week later and they'll give us some feedback on how we can improve the document. We will take that, we will improve upon it. We'll bring them back together in July. And depending on what happens in that 3rd meeting in July, we will say that's it for now, or if we need to bring them back one more time, we will before school starts. So that's where we are with this roadmap to reopening. Want to thank Mr. Irvin for putting us on this track. It's been a very good process for everybody to start to work together on this and integrate our work. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Rodriguez for the virtual academy. So next slide, please.
Thank you, Dr. Menares. We wanted to update you in regards to the virtual academy. We do have 3 options available to students, and we've covered that in previous meetings, but just to reiterate that, 3 different options. One option being a daily synchronous or daily live instruction model for TK through 8th grade students. We have a total virtual situation for our students. And then 3rd option is our traditional independent study program where they meet with a teacher either weekly or twice a week, where they actually come in to meet with a teacher. And so our numbers at this time, to give you just an idea of where we're at, we have a total of 1,364 students in this district that have selected a virtual option. Within that, we have TK through 6th, who we have enrollment about 803 students. 7th and 8th grade, we have 230 students, and 9 through 12, 331 students. In addition, just as we've broken it down a little further, we have 144 special education students who have expressed interest in the virtual academy, and 779 English learners who have also, that are a level 1, who've also expressed interest. So we're currently working with special education as well as multilingual department to make sure that we have programming for students.
Can you say that number again?
Which number would you like me to repeat?
The 2 you just said. How many students?
Oh, sure. So we have 144 students who are special education who have expressed interest in virtual academy, and 779 English learners who are level 1. And if you would like, sir, I can get that and send that to you.
No, that's fine. Are you going to go ahead later on with the rest of the totals?
I can repeat the totals for you, or we can actually put that in the report that we provide you at the end of the week.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. At the request of this board and having heard from our parents, board policy will be amended to ensure that students do not lose their place at their home or magnet school for the remainder of the school year, the 21-22 school year. And we've also made some great efforts through the leadership of Dr. Funches to have 2 administrators who were assigned to provide oversight in leadership and also infrastructure for the school. And those 2 administrators are Ken Martinez, who will serve as the principal, and Dr. Mary Shelton, who will serve as the vice principal. They've done great work in trying to evaluate, build master schedules, as well as looking at transcripts for those students to ensure that we have students in the correct classes so that they can maintain and stay on track for graduation. So overall, we're making great strides in the virtual academy. We do know that there will be some, some curves in the road as we're getting some updates in legislation around independent study programming, but we're very hopeful and feel very strong that our program will be rigorous as well as competitive for our students that choose the virtual academy. And we're also hoping that this is going to be another opportunity to recover ADA for students who are, maybe selected charter schools because they didn't feel that this was an option in the public school setting. So we're very excited to offer multiple options for our families for next school year. Thank you. I'll pass it over now to, next slide, Ginger.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, and good evening, board. As you all know, and you've regularly encouraged, all of our preparation needs to be effectively communicated with our families so that they know what options are available to them and how they can prepare to return to school. Our roadmaps, equity, access, and inclusion plan challenges us to ensure clear and consistent communication with all of our stakeholders. So in addition to our roadmap guidebook, which you heard about earlier, we'll also improve communication with our communities in the following ways. First, we have created a new roadmap web pages on our website. These pages can be accessed now on the SBCUSD homepage and provide information about what families and students can expect as we prepare to return to school for the 2021-2022 school year. Information on this site will be updated as new details become available, but they already include a substantial amount of information about what to expect and how to prepare. We just launched this last Friday, a new weekly newsletter, the Superintendent's e-news and notes, and this will provide regular communication with our families. That will provide updates about things that are coming up in the near future, tips about how to maximize their education, some spotlights about things that are happening in the district. And right now that's distributed by email, social media, and also available on our webpage. But eventually this newsletter will be distributed through Parent Square. Now we're really excited about Parent Square. This is an Aries integrated platform that will allow us to centralize our communication with our families, employees, and community stakeholders into one place that will allow the recipients of information to control their notification preferences. Right now, we're sending information from a multitude of different sources to our families, and this will allow us to streamline that access to information for everyone. I wanted to thank Superintendent Irvin, whose previous district used Parent Square, for encouraging us to research this option here. We think it's going to be a great fit for us. Parent Square provides high levels of functionality so that we'll be able to send multimedia news messages, surveys, urgent safety alerts to our families. From the district, from the school side, or even from the classroom level. We'll also be able to do things like collect permission slips and even distribute downloadable student documents through their secure message delivery. Parent Square even supports individual level engagements, accommodating translation of communication in real time between teachers who speak different languages than the parents they're communicating with. And so it will translate back and forth between the teacher and the parent, or anybody and the parent, of course. Having negotiated a really good rate for this platform, we're preparing to launch Parent Square at the start of the 2021-22 school year, and you should expect to see a contract for this new solution on your agenda July 1st. Lastly, we will be embarking on a complete redesign of our website next year. I know that we have had a lot of challenges with people finding information on our website. It's gotten very complex as we've added new information, and so it's really time for us to look at how to streamline that resource. So as part of that process, we will invite input from families, from employees, and from other community stakeholders. We'll review best practices, and then we'll produce a much easier to navigate information resource for our district and community. So these are just a few of the communication improvements that we are implementing as a companion and in addition to the roadmap to reopening guidebook. So thank you for the opportunity to share these updates with you this evening.
And that is the end of the presentation, Dr. Rogers.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tillman?
Thank you. Can we go back to the slide that shows the that the students will be able to stay in their, we reserve their spot in their magnet school?
The virtual academy.
Virtual academy.
Right. So what it's saying is that students will not lose their place at their home at magnet school. And I think that's great. But what we're actually saying is, if a student right now is in a magnet school program, and when school starts next year, if a parent has a concern because of COVID still, then they may opt out for the virtual, or we're going to leave their spot at the site. And I'm bringing this up because this costs money in order for us to do this, right? Because you're going to have smaller class sizes, which require us to have more employees. So I understand this is a good thing, and I'm all for it, but it's one of those issues that in normal times you wouldn't do it. And I guess I can't, I don't feel like I can emphasize enough the concern I have. It's good, but we have to prepare that once this year is over, that we don't maintain that same level of staffing because we won't be able to afford it, right? So I think this is great. We're not going to penalize parents for having concern about COVID, because right now all students cannot get vaccinated. So they shouldn't be punished if they have a concern. And so I think what you're doing here is great. This in line with the presentation you did earlier that showed where the money was spent, I think is great. I think that should be on the website so the parents can see how we're spending these millions and millions of dollars to help mitigate some of the issues and concerns that were brought about because of COVID-19. So I want to thank you all for that. And just I want to go back to Ms. Rodriguez. So Ms. Rodriguez, you said that we have 144 students in special ed that are opted for virtual, and you said we have 779 that are EL students. So how many other students have opted for virtual?
So the total number of students who have opted for virtual was 1,364. So of that number, so that'll be our denominator, 779 were English learners, and then 144 out of the 1,364
special ed.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, so 1,364. That's good to know. And then how long is that going to be open?
So it's going to be open the full school year. And so we will, you know, our independent study program is become more robust because of this. And so probably another question that will come up is, you know, can students continue to enroll in the virtual academy even after the deadline has passed?
Okay.
So just, you know, kind of being proactive about that. You know, we set up the deadline so that we would be able to figure out what the interest was so that we could start planning around our master's schedule, teachers and staffing. But we understand that, you know, COVID is unpredictable and circumstances are unpredictable.
Right.
So we've created a waiting list. And so we're for those people that missed the deadline. So we're looking at that. And then we're also going to be looking at anybody that if there's a circumstance that happens, we'll put a process in place for them to meet with their administrator to refer them to the virtual academy.
On the testing, what are the guidelines right now for testing? Are we testing students? Or are we planning on testing students?
Are you asking about COVID testing?
Right. And what is the state saying in terms of COVID testing?
So at this point in time, we are not testing students. The only ones that we consider testing were the athletes. But at this point in time, we are not doing any type of COVID testing.
So the only way we would know that students were testing positive at a site would be if the students themselves got tested?
So just like any other illness, a student who might be sick, they will inform the school as to, you know, the reason for sickness, and then we would account for that attendance. The virtual academy isn't just for students who might be sick. There's lots of circumstances and reasons why they may select it, but COVID related issues, you know, we want to make sure that we're allowing for that.
Well, I just hope that we have some way of monitoring if there's an outbreak at a site, whether it's somehow we have to make sure that if a parent tests a child and the child tests positive, are there things in place for the parent to notify the site so that we know? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's have Eric jump in there, but I do think that, remember, due to confidentiality, there's going to be some challenges around that, Mr. Tillman. But however, that's another reason why we're going to be putting those COVID-19 liaisons on the ground to help with contact tracing. But remember this, so a parent or a student, they don't have to notify us that they're COVID-19 positive. So there's some challenges with that, but I'll have Eric jump in there for a few minutes. I don't know if Eric's on the line. If not, I can cover it. Is Eric there?
Yeah, I am Superintendent Irvin. Thank you, and great question, Mr. Tillman. So we will have you'll see an item coming to board, I believe, within the next 2 board meetings. It's going to be our COVID liaisons, and that's going to be an augmented, support person at every school site. That's going to be the one that's the COVID expert. So as the cases come into the school, if they come into the school, or if a student comes up to the office and is coughing, sneezing, and there's a concern, this person's going to handle the investigation from start to finish. And they're going to work with the family to determine if it's allergies, if there's pre-existing medical conditions, or if the student in fact does need to be COVID tested. They will have the ability to do rapid tests on site and also refer them to the lab, which is part of the contract as well. So we can get real-time data, which is required by public health. But to your original question, as far as just random testing, that's not being done. It's not required right now because we are slowly moving out of even the orange tier at this point. The county's moving into the yellow tier. So the mandated testing is not here, but we will have the opportunity, the availability to quickly test anyone that may need to be tested, want to be tested, or to avoid any type of outbreaks. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and you did, and that was great. And are we doing anything with offering or coordinating with public health or local providers to offer the vaccine to parents and students?
Yeah, so we have a very, we're reaching all the areas of the community that we can. So you'll see within the next few weeks, we're working with county public health. They have almost like food trucks that are mobile vaccine units that we're going to be opening up various schools in our community. Muscoy, the harder to reach areas where the families are coming, they're not coming to the larger clinics. We're going to partner with public health and some of our other area partners to get the vaccines into the community, offer up our parking lots, offer up our facilities so that we can do our part. So yeah, that's an ongoing effort that we're doing right now.
And I hope that we're using the tools that we have. You know, the one good thing that happened because of COVID is not only were we doing the phone calls, but a lot of parents have complimented me about the way the district is handling communication with emails also. So I hope we're using those tools to advertise when we're going to have the vaccines, when we're going to have the days for the vaccine, because as the gentleman mother spoke yesterday and read his letter, it is important that we get as many people vaccinated in the community that want to be vaccinated. The better it is for everyone. So I just hope we do that. And in the end, I think we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we don't know what's going to happen. We hope everything goes good. But the other good thing about this virtual academy is we don't know if you might have to revert back to the virtual academy for certain sites or classes if we had an incident where a number of students somehow became tested positive. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you never know. And I think this is a great backup plan to make sure that the students and the families still have the devices and the connectivity in case there is an issue. So I want to thank you for that.
Yes. And Mr. Tillman, remember go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to clarify, so Mr. Tillman, if at any point we have to shut down a classroom or a school, because public health has said so, we're hoping that doesn't happen. Right. They actually would not enroll in the virtual academy. We would just start distance learning, and right. We know how to do that. So they would take their computers and they would go, but they would still be part of their homeschool with their actual teacher. We don't want parents to think that their teacher might change, right?
That's perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the entire class would switch.
It could. It could. Depends, right? So we have to be careful. We have to be ready. And if a particular child, right, is sick and has to quarantine, then we do more of I don't want to call it a home study kind of thing, but we won't take them out of their classroom, and they will not. We're working through the attendance side of that, but they will still be part of that classroom and not lose their space.
Right. And to be fair to you all, I can see where a lot more people are needed in order to facilitate a lot of these things we're talking about doing. But on the finance side, it scares me because I know we're not going to get the ongoing funding to keep everyone. So the challenge becomes, how do you bring in the people that you need, knowing that you can't afford to keep the people after 2023, 2024. That's what the challenge is going to be for us. So I definitely are thankful for the work that you're doing, and I hate to be the crazy guy that's screaming about worried about this money, but that's the reality that we live in. We have to do it both ways. We have to provide the resources now, and we have the money to do it, but we just can't make the mistake of spending that money on permanent positions that we're not going to be able to afford in a couple of years.
That's right.
It's called Mr. Tillman. It's called strategic planning, and we are already behind. We've already been working on strategic planning and budgeting. Trust me when I tell you this. We are always we had a whole day Saturday having this conversation for 10 hours. So we are strategically planning, but I will say high level on the virtual academy, we have to be flexible on the other side of this pandemic, and we have to be able to prepare, provide our parents and students with the necessary resources, whether it's social emotional support. Yes, is there going to be additional positions needed on the other side of this? Absolutely. But we're going to be strategic, we're going to be thoughtful, and we're going to plan it out. We'll definitely have conversations with you. Mr. Sella and I have already talked about that and the board. But also remember, if we're not flexible on the other side of this pandemic with our families, they're going to go elsewhere. And therefore, we have to be flexible so we can retain those students, find the ones that we've lost during this pandemic, bring them back. And then I think what you'll find as well, as Ginger mentioned, I talked with the team and we talked about Parent Square, because that will allow us, based on what you were just saying, is to communicate to all. Everyone in the school community will be able to log on to Parent Square, the mayor, the governor, whoever, and get ongoing information about what's taking place within the district. So that's part of our bigger picture, the whole Parent Square. But again, just remember, we're going to be thoughtful, we're going to be strategic, and we're going to make sure we are able to offset dollars and find those dollars if we have to add positions. So we have a plan on top of a plan, but we will have a backup plan as well. Dr. Menards, anything I missed there, or anybody else on the team?
Oh, plan on top of a plan. I like that. Very intentional and disciplined.
All right. Dr. Flores.
Yes. I want to stay with, or ask Dr. Rodriguez about the 779 ELs. How are they distributed, and if they're all level 1?
So I don't have that information as far as what grade levels they're in. I just have the total number. So we're working with both assistant directors in multilingual programs so that we can segregate those numbers and provide support.
Yeah, that was my next question. I hope that you're working with the multilingual department, because that's level 1, and they're going to need a lot of support. Anyway, and I especially the little ones and our middle schoolers. High school, I think they can handle it, but I think that once you have the breakout of those numbers, I'd like to know. So thank you.
I think we're really fortunate to have 2 really veteran administrators who are working in this program. We got those informations the day right after the deadline closed. So Mr. Martinez and Dr. Shelton are doing a great job trying to navigate this and get us ready.
Yeah. And I'm also concerned about 144 special needs students. I don't know, exactly how you're going to handle that, Dr. Monades, in terms of, if it's by IEP or is it by, grade level?
So each one of those students will need they will have to have an addendum to their IEP, because their placement is changing. So that will be reflected in the IEP, and the IEP team will come up with what the services will be so the child can still progress.
Yeah, so that we can support them in whatever areas that they need. Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
And in real time, just getting some other information from our staff. They were looking at the information, and they were looking at the reclassified ones as part of ELs in general. So at this point in time, we have a total of 120 ELs. Still a big number, but we're looking at what we can do to support them.
Okay, that's great. That are special needs?
So those are be for ELs. Our special need, we're also working on that. Emails going back and forth today between Mr. Martinez and Dr. Lundy in regards to how are we going to evaluate the appropriateness, and as well as the additional services that are needed. So they're trying to coordinate the IEPs at the home schools and just following the process that we already have in place, just to ensure that they're appropriately placed.
Mm-hmm. I see a great opportunity for us to be innovative and to, grow in this area. So I think that's really good. And I have confidence that you guys will do that. So anyway, thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
I would also hope the board would continue to support us as we go forward with this roadmap to reopening, that any issues, questions, concerns from any community member, staff member, that they continue to refer them back to the superintendent's office, and then I can distribute that out to the team and get back with the entire board very quickly. This will allow us to mitigate those issues and concerns, because I have to be honest and I want to be transparent that we're going to have issues as we transition. And so we got to be honest and say, as a district, we're going to have challenges going forward. We know this, but if the board and our stakeholders work with us, we will address their issues and concerns very quickly. And if it's a major issue, then we will address it as a whole, but we will always keep the board informed as we get in these issues and concerns. But just know that we're not going to be perfect on the other side of this. We all know that, but we want to be fair to say, at least get that information to us and we'll address it. If we can address it, and there's a reason why we can't, we'll obviously work with the board to figure out a solution. So I just want to be transparent and throw that out there early on, that we're not going to be experts at this, but we're hoping to get everything right. But I'm telling you that it's going to be some challenges. And so I want to say that up front.
Excellent.
Thank you. So I have one last question. Can you go back to the guidelines for the roadmap?
That was it, the guideline one?
Yeah, correct. So, so this is just for reopening, correct?
Correct. However, we do believe that much of this will shape where we're going as a district. When we, as shared during our special board meeting, you know, there's a lot of research that's out there, relative, you know, current information about how schools can reimagine and rebuild as we come out of this pandemic. And so that was also part of what we used to shape these principles. And then once Mr. Irvin finishes his listening tour, listen and learn tour, then we'll further, I think, shape this. But these are things we've heard from our community, right, through LCAP process and just over the years. So I think it's like putting more meat on the bones, but we're getting started.
Where would parent engagement go?
So the parent engagement goes in the equity, access, and inclusion, and the social emotional learning. It goes between both.
It goes with both, okay. Yeah. And our key indicators, the 8, do we have 8 or 10?
The KPIs?
The KPIs?
I don't remember exactly how many. I think 8 is correct. I think we've used them.
And
down.
you'll still have key performance indicators, but again, after we do this listening and learning tour and we get a chance to see where we are on the other side of this pandemic, we'll come back and work with the board to identify the current ones, or do we need new key performance indicators? Okay. Either way, we will always have those. But what this is doing is this is setting the stage for when we come out of this pandemic, after we finish the listening learning tour, we'll identify those 5 to 6 goals. Some of it will be currently what we're already doing. And then we're going to identify what are those core key priorities under each one. And I can tell you, Dr. Flores, family and community engagement is definitely most likely will be one. And then we'll identify those key priorities, and then we will lay out those strategies that we're going to use. And then we're going to identify those key metrics, those key performance indicators. And then I'm thinking that we're looking at, and Rachel, Dr. Menares, correct me if I'm wrong, a monthly dashboard, monitoring progress dashboard, just like you do currently. And that will monitor our progress monthly, where we'll give the board an update on those key performance indicators. So we're going to be there. We're just needing time to get the students back to school. Let's hear from parents. Let's make sure there's a correlation between what you heard during the LCAP, what we heard during the return to school roadmap presentation, and then what I'm hearing during the listening learning tour. We're going to bring all that together and come back to the board with some recommended next steps. And again, some of these will still be there, and they may even be embedded. Like, for example, here, college and career readiness is probably something that we're looking at and we're hearing, and that may be separate goal or that may be embedded. We don't know yet, but we will be thinking about that and keep you abreast every step of the way.
Okay. I just wanted to compliment you on the icons. I like icons. They're very nice and they're just, you know, they stick out, and it's kind of like the parent square. where you can, it symbolizes and people will begin to internalize these. So I guess the apple, is that the brain next to it?
The brain and the heart, right? So socially emotional.
Is it a heart?
I think it's supposed to be a heart. Well, I mean, it's an apple, but when you step back, you can see a little bit of a heart too, right? So it's the brain.
Okay, all right.
This is our communications department. They are very talented.
Oh yeah, well, I really like it a lot. It's really great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, board, again for the comments, and thank you again to the district for a very thorough presentation. And we're looking forward to the results of the listening and learning tour on Superintendent Irving. So this is good. All right. So we're going to move down our agenda to 9.0, reports and comments, beginning at 9.1, board member comments. So there are none. No. I know they're typing. I know that. Dr. Floor, wait a minute. Dr. White. Oh, wait a minute. They're really, wait. Dr. Wyatt. And then we go from there. Okay. They all came in simultaneously. Okay, Dr. Wyatt.
Dr. Wyatt and then me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. Can you hear me? I'm trying out my new headphones today. So does that sound okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. I've been pretty quiet tonight, so I'm going to take up my entire 5 minutes right now. No, I'm just kidding. No, first of all, I just wanted to formally welcome Mr. Irwin as our new San Bernardino Unified School District Superintendent. So Mr. Irwin, welcome. I could say that last time at our special board meeting, but I want to definitely make sure to say it tonight. And we're excited to work with you and make hope happen here in San Bernardino. I also want to welcome Mr. Solis to our district. So welcome, Mr. Solis. Looking forward to working with you as well. Wow, thank you to our executive cabinet for that budget presentation, LCAP update, and return to school presentations. Quite a bit of work put into all of those, and looking forward to working with the task force, and thank you to my colleagues for asking all the questions for me. Definitely want to take the time to thank all of our teachers and staff for persevering through this very difficult year. All of us on the school board have been beyond fortunate and blessed to see thousands of our amazing students graduate this year and in person. So of course, congratulations to all of our 2021 graduates and the rest of our students and their families for making it through the year. As we've learned, we have students attending colleges over the United States, and many of them are staying right here at San Bernardino Valley College and Cal State University San Bernardino. I couldn't believe how many students we talked to on stage that are staying right here in our city, which I think makes us all proud and makes us all very excited, because you're our next generation. We want you to stay right here. I just want to tell everybody, it looks like we're getting to finally see a little bit of light at the end of this pandemic tunnel. I'm looking forward to a new environment school year. Looking forward to seeing students in school, and definitely look forward to seeing my colleagues and executive cabinet and all our lovely folks that come in for public comment at our board meetings when it's safe to do so. And Madam President, those are my board comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wyatt, Mr. VP, and we are going to Dr. Flores.
Yes, I just want to thank us, or be grateful to us, the board, for deciding to have an in-person graduation. That was a great decision. But I also want to thank Ms. Applegate, because I believe you were in charge of getting the venues and everything. Is that correct?
It was a huge team effort, Dr. Flores. Thank you. Yes, I am the high school principals, but yes, we coordinated it all.
You guys did a fabulous job. Oh my God. You could feel the love, you could feel the happiness, you could feel, I know it was a lot of work, all of you, but it was really worth it. The families were happy. We were happy. It was wonderful to, a lot of kids graduated, and standing up there and, bumping them and so forth. I think Dr. Rogers and I were like, okay, when is it? Are we still going? Are we still going? But it was a lot of kids, and it's amazing, and I think it was, how would you say, renewal, a celebration for us to move forward in the joy. And I'm looking forward to the 2020 graduation on June 18th so that we can celebrate our kids there as well. And so I just can't tell you how joyful my heart is and so full that we did that. I mean, it was the right thing to do. It really, really was. So I'm proud. I'm proud that we did that. And then I wanted to especially thank Mr. Komnick for the yearly meetings for LCAP. I participated as many times as I could, and it was very, how would I say, very informative. And Mr. Irvin, our parents and our community are very vocal now. They have their voices. And I think with the Parent Square, that'll even add even more. That's a great idea. And, so we can get out that information. That's really important. So I wanted just to say that. And then I just have a few questions about summer school. I wondered, we're only going to have it for 3 weeks, right? Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. The high schools, however, might be a little bit longer, Dr. Flores, depending on the credit recovery, because some of those are a little bit longer.
Oh, okay. So my questions then are, is it too much trouble just to give us an update of how smoothly everything's going, or, if there were like any issues that you guys troubleshooted that you resolved? I mean, like Mr. Batir said, if somebody wants a COVID test, do we have that available in summer school or not?
I was going to give a brief update on Dr. Flores just on how it went, but I don't have details about COVID testing or any of that.
You do or don't?
He's going to give an update.
I do not.
He's going to give an update.
Okay. So I'm just, okay, that'll be great. And I did get little rumblings today. I didn't know, I was really busy today, but was there enough hand sanitizer and hand washing stations at all our schools where we have summer school? I'm just curious about that. And so just, could you follow up to make sure that was done, hopefully? So anyway, I don't know who does that. I don't know if
yes,
does that or not.
We can, if you can let us know what school, and you could do that offline.
Yeah, I'll do it offline. Yeah, there's about 2 or 3 of them. Okay, great. And it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I just, I know that we started and so forth, but I just want to make sure that all of our PEEs or PPEs are in place and so forth.
And then, if I can just add to that, we did get a number of schools that expressed maybe that some of the hand sanitizer stations weren't working properly. And so Sam and his team, Mr. Candelaria, is on top of it and will be deployed to those sites tomorrow.
Okay, great. Okay, I just wondered.
And we also reached out to SBTA, and so we have a list that of schools that reached out to their president. So we have that list too when we're looking at it.
Okay, okay. I just wondered. And I just want to thank you all, Cabinet, for all the fine work that you guys do. I know that you're like super busy and you all look like you need more sleep. So anyway, I'm just teasing you. But I just want to thank you on behalf of the board for all the work that you do. It's a lot. And all the BCs that you give us, just very appreciative. And like I said, Mr. Irvin, welcome. Many blessings to you and to us as we move forward to do the great work that we all need to do. So thank you.
All right, Ms. Rosales Medina.
First of all, I want to say congratulations to all of our graduates. A few of us, actually many of us that are here today, attended the graduation ceremonies, both daytime and the evening. They were beautiful, I have to say. The fireworks at the end just made it feel special. The decorations, even the live stream, as well as Dr. Volkemer had mentioned that they would have that recorded as well. So for those families that would like to see it, I know myself, because my son graduated this year, they can also view it. So I want to say congratulations to everyone, all of our seniors, as well as a shout out to my son, Christian Medina, and there's another student, Annalise Prince, who graduated from Middle College High School. I'm so proud of all of our students that not only are graduating, but they're attending prestigious universities throughout the country, as well as here at the state. There's many students who are graduating, getting good paying jobs. So we're really excited about how we're providing those opportunities for all of our students. So I wanted to say that piece. And of course, I do want to acknowledge Pride Month. I know it was not on the resolution as a resolution for this board meeting, but I do want to move on ensuring that we do have it at the next board meeting, a resolution for Pride Month, and that this is included every year. So that way it's not where we forget, it's something that it's included every single year for June. So I just wanted to move that. I'm not sure how you would do it, or you would just have it automatically, Madam President Rogers.
Thank you. And I know that this had came up, and actually Superintendent Irvin, we're looking into the information now. So as a board, if anyone else wants to speak on it, or, you know, there's a consensus to move forward, it's being
also there was not there. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So would there not, so there wouldn't be a consensus to move forward unless we had 4 board members?
Well, because it's not, but because it's not agendized, it's already made the request that we'll look at it offline. But because it's not agendized, we wouldn't be able to discuss it, because then the board it would be a challenge of voting on it. So because it's not agendized,
no, I'm not discussing it. Yeah, I'm just asking to see have it at the next board meeting's agenda. So, but what I'm trying to clarify.
Okay.
I was just trying to clarify. So you're saying that we wouldn't even consider having on the agenda unless we had a consensus?
But just so I can, Madam President, can
I don't want to get into the full discussion because it was already brought to my attention, and then I brought it to the attention of the superintendent. We just know that this agenda was already set.
I'm not questioning
I'll take it into
agenda.
consider offline. Yeah, I'll just say offline. I'll make sure that I've got the request, Ms. Rosales Medina. That was all.
Yeah, it was brought to my attention, and we were trying to avoid a serial meeting about it, a serial discussion about it.
Madam President, this is our agenda. It's the board's agenda, and it is us that decides what goes on the agenda.
Dr. Flores, it was already brought to my attention is what I'm saying. I don't want to discuss it because I've already brought it, and I know multiple board members. So if I have to go into detail, when it was brought up, then it was several of us, and we were avoiding that. We had got together and collaborated about it.
I get it. Sorry.
Right, and that, Dr. Flores, as you know, I was just trying to make sure it was already brought to my attention, and being that it's not agendized at this meeting, I didn't want the board having that conversation because it's not agendized. So at the next board meeting, if there's a request for it to be agendized, typically I'll just have a conversation with the board president. And if it's agendized, we'll put it on the agenda. That's all.
Okay, so no, I think that's where the confusion is happening. So this is not, it's not an agendized item, I get it, but I'm asking that we have it at the next board meeting. So I'm requesting that it will be on the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's been the normal practice of this board at a board meeting, if you wanted to have something added to an agenda, you can look down the dais. This is our dais now, and you're in board comments and say, is there a consensus to agendize? If you see the consensus, you agendize it. We've done that for years.
I was not doing that. I said I already have one. It is so many discussions that has taken place, and I didn't want to go further. And I did let you know that, you know, Mr. Rosales Medina, and then I let Dr. Flores knows that, and I know, so Dr. Irvin or Superintendent Irvin is aware of it. So we just are not at the part of making the agenda for the next upcoming agenda, and Pride Month does not end until the end of this month, but we could not have anything done adjusted to this agenda.
I just misheard. I misheard Superintendent Irvin. Right. Yeah, because I heard him say something else. So it just
you didn't mishear him though. But my point is this: you didn't mishear Mr. Irvin, and I'm telling Mr. Irvin, it's been common practice of this board at a regular board meeting, during a board comment, we can look for consensus to add something to the next meeting. We don't have to agendize the item to ask if we have consensus.
Right.
And that's what we're doing tonight. Ms. Medina is asking, is there consensus to agendize the prior resolution for?
But do you want to agendize it to discuss it only? Because
no, as a resolution.
Madam President,
Mr. Irwin mentioned it.
Madam President, I got the request. Yeah, Madam President, I got the request, and then definitely we will look forward to agendizing it at the next board meeting. I just have to do some research behind the scenes because they asked for something to be agendized, and there's no resolution that we have at this time. So I need to do some work behind the scenes because I can't just agenda. Right, if we're able to find the resolution, that's another story. I don't have anything right now. I have
Riverside, several unified school districts. Right. Riverside Unified is one, a great example that they've done one. Right. Redlands, yeah.
And that's what we normally do. We reach out and we find that data. But this happened standing on the stage of the graduation, and I did carry the message, but it was within a couple of days.
Right. The resolutions can be easily found, but that's fine. Well, I guess what I misinterpreted what Mr. Irwin was saying is that we would have it agendized in order to have the conversation to be agendized. That's where the confusion was. And I'm glad he was able to clarify.
Okay. And I think are you done, Ms. Rosales Medina? Matter of fact, you were finishing and then we're going to go to Mr.
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tillman.
Yes, and I agree. It's normal practice for us to say at board comment, I like to agendize something at the next meeting.
Then don't ask me offline is all I'm saying. I was trying to keep it formalized. That was all I wanted to do.
But I also wanted to make sure people knew that this was a discussion because, you know, they may ask, well, why isn't it on the agenda? And so I'm just clarifying, okay, so we've already, and that's okay. We can have this as an open again discussion and that's okay.
You can, and Ms. Medina, you can ask that an item be agendized. Absolutely, that is correct. And absolutely correct. And then I'm saying that, yes, it will be agendized. What I need to do is just do research on whether or not we're going to bring forward a resolution or are we bringing forward just the item itself. I just need some work behind the scenes, that's it. But you're absolutely correct. And Mr. Tillman is correct. The board can vote and they wanted to say, yes, we wanted to agendize at the next board meeting. He's absolutely correct. So we're good there. So there's no big deal. I'm in agreement.
Right, and just to be fair to Mr. Irvin, this is an informal process that this board has had for years. And Mr. Irvin, we have a communication team that is great and they know this board very well. They will not have a problem writing the resolution that they know we want to see. They've done it over and over again. And I commend the communications team for the great work they do when they bring the resolutions. They've always done a great job. So you may have some concerns about how the resolution is going to work, but trust me, your communication team does it. You call them, they're going to take care of you. They're great at it. And they'll have one on the agenda of the board. And if the board members some of them decide they don't want to support it, they would vote no on it. The other board members will vote yes on it. That's the way we do it. It's not hard.
I agree with you 100%.
All right, thank you.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Ms. Medina, as well. I was just saying that I just needed time offline because this conversation had taken place offline. I was trying to avoid a serial meeting or a violation of Brown. That was it.
And
so we're good.
Just the time frame. He just didn't have time. That's the only thing I said.
Well, yeah, and it's still the right month, so we're in good shape. Exactly. On my time, because in a little while, Dr. Hill's going to tell me to be quiet. She really is a stickler about my time. But I really want to thank the superintendent and district staff for a great job on the graduation. It was amazing. I commend you for it. I got in trouble with Dr. Hill because I'm not going to enough of them, but I feel like it's my role to make sure we have them, and we've done that.
Our role.
And I've gone to, it's our role to make sure we have it.
Absolutely.
We came up with the idea to do that. Glenn Helen, the board supported it. I think it's wonderful. And some of them are going to be at 66. I'll be at the 66 Stadium for San Andreas. But I can't say enough about how wonderful they have worked out. It just were amazing. And then I want to thank the superintendent and staff and everyone involved for a great summer school program. I've heard from parents and their kids. They're elated about being back on site, and the teachers are just as happy as the students. So it's another great thing for the district. And we're using the money in the right way to mitigate some of the problems. I want to make sure that the staff realizes that we have the money right now to do one-time stuff. And so we see maximizing the whole transportation thing. And that leads me to another question. This board has always been concerned about siblings staying together. So, and if we can use some of the money to make sure that happens, then we should do that. So I want to know at some point, and I don't want to rush anybody, but it'd be good to know how many parents are being told no in terms of their siblings staying together at a site, whether it's a magnet program, whatever. Because I know it's the board's priority that siblings stay together. So if I have a student that put in for a transfer and they're at Cajon High School or San Gregorio High School, and then they've been there for 3 years, and then their sibling is going to be in the 9th grade, then it's the board's thought that you would do everything possible to make sure those students stay at the same school. So if that's not happening, then we need to find out why. And it gets back to one of the things that Mr. Irwin talked about in terms of convincing parents to stay in our district, in our schools. Dr. Hill has said for years, you're better off giving them cookies than, what was the bad thing, Dr. Hill?
You're on mute.
Broccoli. Better to cook cookies, make cookies and feed them broccoli.
Yeah, but I say spinach. I like broccoli, but I don't like spinach. So, but the cookies is letting the two siblings go to the same school. And somehow whoever's in control of that, we got to make sure, Mr. Irvin, that we do as much as we can to accommodate parents. To me, that's a simple thing. And then I want to thank all of our nonprofits and community folks. I see them out there. They're having events. They're out there to support our students. And so I'm really excited about where we're going in this next stage towards getting back to some idea or semblance of normal. And it's only happening because of the district staff and the work that you all are doing. So I want to thank you for it. I want to commend the parents for being patient with us, working with us, responding so well to the summer school. And then, I mean, when you look at the number of parents who are opting out for virtual, it's amazing the number of students and parents that are waiting to come back full-time in August also. So, I think it's just good to see the way we approach this entire issue with the pandemic. I think the board made the right decisions. And in the end, we built up the confidence so that the parents know that we're going to do everything we can to make the right decisions for the students, the parents, the teachers, and all our employees. So thanks to everybody that's been involved in this. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to use a little bit of my 5 minutes to let you know, let the community know that of the Tillman children who attended San Bernardino High, I was the teacher to all of them but one. And so, Dan, I want to thank you for not being old enough to be in my class, so I might have left teaching long before my 40 years. So thank you, Danny. Other than that, Mr. Irvin,
how can you be that
Irvin and Mr. Sullen, I'm not going to let you take any more of my time. Just want to say welcome to both of you. I know it's been an exciting night, but I'm sure it's going to get better. I also want to say to Cabinet, the presentations were wonderful. You did an excellent job, and you always educate us more and more each time. Of the graduations, I'm not going to tell you how many Mr. Tillman attended so far, but they've all been wonderful. So for the creativity and everything that was put into those, I think was absolutely wonderful. And I want to congratulate the class of 2021 and all the parents for giving us an opportunity to educate your children. The one I want to end though, I'm not going to use my whole time, so don't panic anyone. I do want to end though, as we look forward to our students returning, whether it's the virtual academy or in person, let's not shortchange them. If we have 5 nurses and we need 20, we need to get 20 nurses. So I just want to make sure that parents feel comfortable, and I know they're exciting. I saw the school buses out and about yesterday. I saw parents at the bus stop greeting their kids and hugging them as they were getting off the bus. So I just felt good by what I saw. So I knew it was a good day for parents. Let's make our parents happy, but let's make our students even happier and keep them. And we'll continue baking those cookies, and we will continue saying thanks to all of our teachers, all of our custodians, all of our classified certificated workers. You know, you've been in the trenches, and we appreciate you, and we want you, all staff members, to know that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. And I also want to congratulate the class of 2021. They did a great job just coming out ready to graduate. Speeches have been great. I've attended 10, 8 in person and 2 drive-throughs, and they just all were stellar. And we're glad that we were able to see their smiling faces, although they had their smiling eyes with their mask on. It has been great, and we're looking forward to upcoming ones. I also want to say, again, congratulations to Superintendent Irwin and to Mr. Sullins again. Just have seen them hit the ground running, and that is great. We're getting so much information, and it's just great to know where we're going and just to see that passion. So that is going to do our district well and continue to keep us heading to the top. Lastly, I want to say, it's not that I don't like to talk a lot, because Lord knows I get my share of doing that throughout the day and on Zooms, but Dr. White and I do get a chance to see the agenda prior, so we ask our questions then. But I will encourage the board as well, because when I get my parent concerns, and this is a compliment to the district, I get them to them right away, and they do resolve them, and I appreciate that, because our community, you know, they don't have time to wait, and they want to know how we can get whatever it is they need. And so I want to compliment Superintendent Irvin already. There's things that I send when I get it, no matter what time, and it gets resolved right away. And I think that's what makes us great and help us to continue to be sensitive to the needs of others. And so I'm appreciative and just wanting to give you a shout out for that. So again, that's not that I don't like to talk, but when things are getting resolved, there's not a lot to talk about when I put it in the hands of those that are in charge. And then lastly, again, I will remind, as we're looking for our next strategic plans and things that we're going to be doing in the future, again, when I saw those Abbott students coming across, and I did see our BC, hopefully we're getting to that Abbott for all. Our parents are understanding that is just a key to the success, additional success to your students. My students were in Abbott, and I love it, and it was great, and it helped me as a parent tremendously. I'm looking forward to a dual enrollment discussion when we begin to talk about and biliteracy for all, because we're aiming to be the best, or the best of the best-er, whatever that may be. So thank you all for everything that you're doing. And the next, we're going to move to 9.2 with superintendent and staff, and maybe we can get out by 9 o'clock. We'll see what we do. See.
I'll keep it short and sweet. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Volkermer, who's going to go first. And then I'll jump in very quickly and see if our staff has anything.
Great, thank you, Mr. Irvin. Board, just 4 quick items. One of them I should have brought up earlier, but given my seasoned veteran status, thoughts don't always come as quickly as I'd like them to. So I just wanted to share just a couple thoughts about the budget. I was listening to your discussion and the urgency around what was a very counterintuitive conversation. You know, when you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars of new revenue and you have to be talking about cutting the budget, it defies logic. But it's the right conversation to be having, absolutely the right conversation to be having. And the good news is that you can see it coming way down the road. right? It's not like where we were last year where we heard in January that we had to cut $96 million. Fortunately, we didn't have to, but we only had a couple months to react. You can be very thoughtful and measured in your approach, and now you have 3 years to solve the problem before we get to 2024, 25. So that's an advantageous position to be in. And I know the team can give you very, very thoughtful recommendations based on a collaborative process to be able to get to do that. Second thing, I also wanted to mention the graduations and just really commend the board on making sure that we had in-person graduation ceremonies for our kids. And also the recommendation of Glen Helen, that has turned out to be an absolutely wonderful venue for us. It's accommodating. The people up there have been very cooperative, and the students have been absolutely fantastic. I say that they are equal parts spirited and distinguished. They're having fun. They're celebrating, but they're also respecting the seriousness of the ceremony. And it's just really a testament to their upbringing and their parents, who's ever been in the role of raising them, and hopefully our contribution to that along the way. But they have really done a fantastic job. It's great to spend an individual moment with them, find out what they're going to do next year, and really see the hope in their eyes. 8 down and 2 to go. You heard about San Andreas this coming Friday at 66er Stadium, and then we'll fulfill that promise for the class of 2020 on June 18th. So we're excited about that as well. See Karen if you want to get involved in that. I want to speak just to the transition that Mr. Irvin and I have been able to be going through. I want to first absolutely welcome him. I don't know if there's anybody happier to see him come to the district than me. And so I want to welcome him officially. He did get a little bit of baptism by fire. This is his first regularly scheduled board meeting. You were gracious enough to give him a special board meeting the second day he was here. So way to go, board. But we've been very busy in transition activities. I have thoroughly enjoyed our many discussions around the history, around our operations, around the context of our district and our community. I've appreciated his acknowledgement of the many good things that are happening in this district. And I also admire his recognition that we can build on those successes and get even better, and his thoughts and ideas around that. And so I've just really enjoyed our time together, looking forward to continuing that process. And then finally, goodbyes are never easy, but this is Ms. Christakos's last board meeting with us. Her last day of work is officially Friday. And so I want to thank her for her steadfast service and her faithful commitment to our students and our families, for keeping our dollars in order. What a hard job, and you saw part of that tonight, keeping a whole bunch of money moving in the right direction, spending it legally, doing it the right way, meeting the board's needs in terms of how you want to spend the money. And really not just the budget, but improving operations in all areas. And I could go on and on about the many database decisions that have been made around all of our different operations under her leadership and all those different aspects. So she's been an outstanding member of cabinet. I have personally thoroughly enjoyed working with her, and I know she'll be missed. So to my my fellow amiable on the cabinet, we're going to miss you, and we wish you just all the happiness and health there is in years to come. So congratulations, Janie.
We're gonna miss you, Janie. All right, Superintendent Irvin.
Yes, I won't take up any more time. I've had a chance to engage with the board today, but it's been great dialogue and great conversation with the board today, especially around the budget and all the other topics. So and it's very evident that the board is clearly committed to student achievement. I will say very quickly that I agree with Dr. Bokemer that the graduations were outstanding. Again, this is my first week. I've already attended 6 graduations, and I believe we have one more coming up on Friday. So it's been interesting, but I will say that the transition has been smooth. I really appreciate the support from the board members. Many of you have been engaged in conversations with me on a weekly basis, and some of you late at night, Mr. Tillman and Dr. Flores at times. I really appreciate the honest and candid conversations. Dr. Wyatt, I know you're on vacation And but I really appreciate that because it shows that you're willing to engage and take my phone calls at any time. And I know, Dr. Hill, I've called you several times on a few things just to get some clarity, but I appreciate that. And so thank you on that. And then also the executive leadership team has been very supportive across the board, all members. And then most importantly, the staff, the classified and certificated staff members have been very supportive, from Emily opening up the door. And when I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning until the time I left late at the evening, the staff have been great. And then lastly, I really appreciate Ashley Akala and SBTA in their newsletter. She gave me a nice warm welcome. I really appreciated that. And so, yeah, the welcome has been great. It's been warm. And so with that, I don't want to take up any more time, but I would say that I'm just jumping right into the mix. And thank you so much. And I'm not sure if anybody else on our team wants to share anything, but I'm done at this point. Anyone else on the team have an update for the board?
I just wanted to quickly again give a shout out for summer school. It was amazing to be on campus and see our kids come back, to watch them walk through those gates, and they were so excited. And just thank you so much to all of our site leaders and their staff. Everybody was so excited to have them, and just everything went off without a hitch from what I've heard. And I know our cabinet members were out there as well visiting schools, and just a great team effort by all our divisions, whether it was enrollment or nutrition services, transportation. Really want to shout out to Dr. Funches and HR, moved mountains and made miracles happen to get us the teachers that we needed and to provide the support staff at the summer school site. So just fantastic. Thank you. It was a great kickoff. And so we look forward to a few more weeks of great summer school. Thank you, board, for supporting us in that as well.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Marcus.
I'll just jump in to that just real quickly. I want to say thank you to our site leaders as well, and our board and everyone who supported summer school. It was a heavy lift, but we were able to get it done, right? We saw yesterday in our school visits, administrators working hard, classified staff working hand in hand with high school students working for nutrition services, man. We got high school students working for the summer. Our guest educators, we had 300 plus spread out across our school sites to support as well. Just wonderful from top to bottom. SPTA, teachers, counselors, program facilitators, wonderful to see the smiles in the parents, and it did our hearts very good. So very, very much proud of our efforts.
Yeah, we were fortunate to go and visit some schools, and to see that kindergartners going into first grade for their very first day of school was just heartwarming. Giving an update, thanks to your leadership, we have CAPS at all of our schools. It is up and running and good to go. We also have our immunization clinics so that we can ensure that our students have all the immunizations that are mandatory by the state. So in one day, we provided 90 immunizations at the WA building. So we're excited and getting the word out there. And then we're getting ready for the new school year. So we're planning a back to school extravaganza that will be providing some support services, immunizations, backpack giveaways, just haircuts, doing whatever we can to get the community excited about going back to school.
And just the last thing, sorry, just a reminder, our graduation for the 2020 graduates on the 18th from 6 to 8 at Glen Helen. We really want to celebrate them. So we want to see everybody there. Thank you.
Excellent. Definitely looking forward to that. And Janie, I almost feel like saying thank you for your service, for all you've done. You know, you have been great. So we appreciate you so much. And to Superintendent Irvin and to Interim Superintendent Dr. Volkermer, Dr. Funches did a great job representing you all yesterday. I failed to mention that. I think that was yesterday, Dr. Flores. It's been so many graduations, but he did a great job. It was very cool.
He did a fabulous job. He knocked it out of the park. It was a great speech, Dr. Funches.
It was very cold. Okay, so we're gonna move now down to 10.0 consent items. Board. This is when I get a
second.
Okay. All right, it's been moved in second. Is there anything to pull, board?
Madam President, this is Scott. I need to pull.
Oh, yes.
I need to be recuse from 10.18.
You're just going to recuse on, is it, what's the number again, Dr. Wyatt?
10.18.
10.18. All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and approve the rest. I lost my order again. All right. Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
And Dr. Dowdy Rogers? Aye. Motion carried. All right, we're coming back now to 10.18.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. If there's no discussion, Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
And Dr. Dowdy Rogers? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Moving along here. 11.0 action items. 11.1 personnel report number 20 dated June 8th, 2021.
As presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. If there's no discussion, Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
Dr. Dowdy Rogers, motion carried. 11.2 education protection account spending plan fiscal year 2021-2022 business services.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. If there's no discussion, Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
Dr. Dowdy Rogers? Aye. Motion carried. 11.3 establishment of sub-fund business services. 11.3.
So moved.
Aye. Second.
It's been moved in second. If there's no discussion, Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
And Dr. Dowdy Rogers? Aye. Motion carried. 11.4.
I'm gonna recuse myself, Madam President.
From 11.4?
Yes.
Okay. That's right.
So moved.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and second, and Mr. Tillman is recusing. And this is the approval. I was going to read approve the memorandum of understanding between the San Bernardino City Unified School District and Savant Preparatory Academy of Business. All right, if there's no further discussion, Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
Dr. Dowdy Rogers? Aye. Motion carried. We are now at 11.5, consideration and approval of the employment contract, Associate Superintendent, Business Facilities and Operations.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. If there's no discussion, I'll take the vote. Dr. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Wyatt?
Aye.
Ms. Rosales Medina?
Aye.
Mr. Tillman?
Aye.
Dr. Flores?
Aye.
Dr. Dowdy Rogers? Aye. Motion carried. All right, 12.0 summary of board member requests. And I believe that's you, Ms. Ontivero, still?
Yes, it is. And tonight, I think most of your questions were answered on the spot. So you asked a question and it was answered, but I did capture a couple of things that you asked us to follow up on. So Mr. Danny Tillman asked that we would just double check to make sure that we had all the supplies that were needed for summer school and CAPS program participants. He also asked if we would provide details about the number of students who have selected the virtual academy, which then Sandra did provide. And then Dr. Flores asked that we would disaggregate the numbers of our English language learners in the virtual academy by grade and proficiency level. Ms. Abigail Rosales Medina requested that we recognize Pride Month with a resolution at the next board meeting and then every June thereafter. And those were the requests that I captured.
All right, board, I think that's it. So we are at 13.0, meeting adjournment, 13.1, adjournment.
So move. Second.
All right, well, meeting's adjourned. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our viewing audience. We hope we didn't keep you up too late tonight. Thank you again. Congratulations to you graduates, and God bless. We'll see you all at our next meeting.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye, Janie. We'll see you soon somewhere.